the open public hearing for April 5th, 2016. We'll begin with a special board account decision items. Item number 1, 17393 BZ, 3223. Please hold roll, please.
This one, I just want to apologize. We mixed up the numbers, but we did review this.
That's all right, we make mistakes all the time. We understand.
So, did everyone have a chance to review this? Yes. Okay. I think they submitted everything we asked them to, responded to the issues, so then I'd like to make a motion to grant.
Chair Palmetto?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Otley-Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continued hearing items. Item number 2, 20262BZ, 950 Allerton Avenue, the Bronx.
Anyone is here on this? Requested an adjournment.
No, Julie's here.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Julie, have the applicant?
Okay, you wanted an adjournment till when?
April 25th.
So, is that okay if we just put on the deck? Okay. All right, so for April 26th, but that means you would have submitted already. Did you submit already?
No, yeah. What is April 11th?
No. We need to have submitted by tomorrow for April 26th.
Oh, okay.
So let's, when can you submit by?
By next week.
Okay, so how about a submission on April 13th for continuation on May 3rd?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that, I think that's okay, because it's a little one thing.
Yes?
Nothing on.
Item number 3, 14292BC, and item number 4, 28913BZ, 473-541 6th Street, Brooklyn.
Let's see, I guess we can see it. Great. Good morning. My name is Elise Wagner. I'm a member of the firm of Kramer, Levin, Naftalis, and Frankel. I'm here today on behalf of Methodist Hospital, and we're here to discuss modifications to the design of the Methodist Hospital Center for Community Health, an ambulatory care center for which the board granted a variance in July 2014. As you know, the variance was granted to satisfy the hospital's programmatic need for adequate and appropriate space for ambulatory care facilities located on the hospital's main campus in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And the blue on the slide is the new Center for Community Health, which is between 5th and 6th Streets, 7th and 8th Avenues in Brooklyn. At the time the variance was granted, the board also approved an amendment to a special permit affecting the below-grade parking garage to the west of the proposed center. We are proposing to revise the drawings approved with that special permit only to conform them to the drawings related to the variance. I'm joined today by representatives of New York Methodist Hospital, also by representatives of New York Presbyterian Hospital, with which Methodist is affiliated, and also the hospital's architect. Before representatives of Methodist and the architects come up to speak, there are a few things I'd like to emphasize. Methodist Hospital, like any nonprofit, must attempt to satisfy its programmatic needs in the context of physical location, applicable laws, and financial considerations. The application for the approved variance represented a snapshot in time of the hospital's programmatic needs. Those needs are fluid, and the details may change over time. The hospital's basic programmatic needs, as reflected in the approved plans, have not changed. The hospital still has a need for adequate space for outpatient care facilities on its main campus in locations that allow for efficient adjacencies between programs. Several months after the variance was granted, a lawsuit was brought against the city and the hospital. The hospital wanted to settle the lawsuit rather than proceed with lengthy and expensive legal proceedings, but only if it was able to undertake all of the programs accommodated by the approved design. The litigants asked if a floor could be removed from the building. The hospital studied the building program carefully and asked its architects to develop the design a bit in order to find further efficiencies. The hospital then determined that its programmatic needs could be satisfied without the building's top floor, which was smaller and less efficient than the building's other floors. That change, along with a number of other minor changes, were memorialized in a settlement agreement that was approved by the court. At the same time, New York Presbyterian Hospital asked Methodist to perform a due diligence review of the physical and financial parameters of the project. That review concluded that the hospital's programmatic needs, as expressed in the original variance, could be satisfied by the revised building design, with some further changes to reflect normal design development. That is the design that is before you today. In addition, I would note that the proposed modifications do not require any new zoning waivers or an increase in the degree of any previously granted waivers. I'd now like to ask Lauren Yedvab, Senior Vice President of the hospital, to describe what has happened since the variance was granted.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Yedvab. I'm the Senior Vice President at New York Methodist Hospital. As Elise already stated, the hospital's programmatic needs have not changed. We need the same types of outpatient facilities to meet the same projected patient demands. However, time has passed, and several things have happened during that time. First, a group of residents living in close proximity to the hospital, known as Preserve Park Slope, brought a lawsuit to challenge the grant of the variance. The lawsuit was settled in January of 2015, approximately 6 months after the grant of the variance. The settlement requires that the center must be reduced in height by 1 story, as well as a number of other changes. Second, we have undertaken an extensive due diligence and financial feasibility analysis of the project with our affiliate, New York Presbyterian, to ensure that what we are proposing can actually be implemented. We have reviewed the design with our architects and engineers to assure that our building is operationally efficient and functional for our doctors, our staff, and our patients. Third, the passage of time has created new operational pressures on some of the hospital's existing facilities. Because of timing issues, 2 facilities are not going to be relocated into the new building as previously presented. Radiation oncology will actually remain in the current location in the main hospital because of its equipment replacement cycle that will end before the center is operational. The second program is the hyperbaric and wound care center, which will be relocated from 1 Prospect Park West to the main hospital because the lease of its existing space will actually expire before the center will be operational. These facilities will occupy spaces in the main hospital that are comparable in size to what was originally proposed in the center, and they will be accessible from 6th Street, directly across the street from the Center for Community Health. I now would like to introduce Frank Gunther, who is our architect from Perkins Eastman, who will describe the proposed design modifications.
Can you just stay on this one subject of the not relocated oncology and hyperbaric? So, in the normal use of those 2 facilities, what's the connection, what's the sort of procedural connection between those 2 facilities and what goes on in the rest of the ambulatory care center?
Well, there is a cancer center in the Center for Community Health, which includes a faculty practice for hematology oncology, as well as an infusion center for chemotherapy. Radiation oncology is complementary to those services, but not necessarily taking place on the same day or the same visit. However, the physicians will be co-located so that radiation oncologists will be available and will participate in team meetings and consultation to facilitate that collaborative approach with our oncologists, surgeons, as well as medical oncologists in the Center for Community Health to see the patients.
So then how does a patient who maybe is going to both to radiation and to something else, to, I don't know, to another function that's across the street, how do they do
Well,
that?
they don't go on the same day.
They won't go on the same day.
No. So a patient that's receiving radiation oncology does not get chemotherapy on the same day. Generally speaking, they do one and then the other, or they do a combination, but never on the same day. and it is 250 feet from one entrance to the other.
But do they walk across the street, or is there an underground connection?
There is no underground connection for pedestrians, but the patient would either be delivered directly to the hospital for radiation oncology or directly to the Center for Community Health.
And the doctor who's managing that care is located where?
The radiation oncologist will be located at the hospital, and the medical oncologist and surgical oncologist will be located across the street in the Center for Community
So
Health.
the patient's directed to go directly to radiation oncology on that visit, or also has to go to check in at the
Oh,
end
no,
of
they
the
would go
visit?
direct, if the patient will meet the oncologist or the radiation oncologist in the Center for Community Health, and once they are programmed or scheduled for radiation oncology, they will go directly to radiation oncology where the physician will be there to see them at that point.
So on a different day? And then what's the current use of those two spaces in the hospital building?
It's currently occupied by radiation oncology now. We've already replaced one of the linear accelerators in the past year, and we will likely replace a second linear accelerator and treatment planning system before the center is built.
And what about hyperbaric?
Hyperbaric currently is occupying space at 1 Prospect Park West where a lease will be up. It will be relocated to space adjacent to radiation oncology that is currently used by pharmacy administration and has actually been relocated during another project for the hospital.
So it's empty space?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Frank Gunther. I'm a partner of Perkins Eastman Architects, and I've been working on this project since the beginning. We have incorporated design refinements that comply with the settlement of the litigation and continue to satisfy the hospital's programmatic needs. The building provides optimal efficiency of care delivery, mechanical, electrical operations, while also maximizing space utilization. The building envelope is essentially the same as originally presented. The interior layouts contain the same basic elements with a few exceptions, which I will describe today. Just to give you an overview of the modifications, we're going to show you what we had originally proposed and what we're proposing today. This is the previous approval, and the next slide is what we're proposing today. We might flip back and forth so you can see the differences between the two, but I'll describe what they are. We eliminated the 7th floor from the top of the building, so the building is lower by that dimension. We introduced a change on the 8th Avenue facade to take away an entrance that was there previously at the request of the community and replace it with a planter and make what had been an entrance simply an exit facing onto 6th Street. I'm sorry. Just to orient you, 8th Avenue is going to the right and 6th Street is here. You have to look at my left shoulder. We reduced the floor heights in 4 of the floors by about 6 inches as a result of coordination, mechanical, and structural drawings. It created efficiency was achieved through the design development of the project and allows the height of the building to drop by a total of 24 inches in that.
Can you just stay there for a second?
Sure.
How are you able to reduce the floors by 6 inches?
Between the time we submitted the drawings originally in 2014 and today, we've developed the design a little bit further, and we've, through the use of beam and other Revit techniques, we've been able to affect an efficiency of structural depth. So the beams that are crossed by major trunk ducts have been reduced in height, and that provides the ability to lower the floor-to-floor height in the
You actually made changes to the depth of the beams.
by 6 inches on 4 floors.
And so not mechanical systems, but to
No.
the beams. So what are the beams now? You know? The depth of the beams now?
Well, they vary, depends upon where they might be.
Okay.
And they would go to 18 inches from 24 inches, or from 30 inches to 24 inches, depending on where it would be.
It's huge. And another question, I always hear about hospitals needing the height because as technology changes, more height seems to be what's needed and less height. How does this fit in with the future?
We feel we're very comfortable with the floor-to-floor heights that we have within the building. They're 15 foot 6 inches on the floors where the patient care are, and that is adequate distribution of MEP services. We have a regular grid that also works well with that, and the location of the risers for mechanical distribution is central, so the lengths of runs are not all that long.
By reducing the depth of the structure, has this increased the cost of the project?
It's cost neutral.
Cost neutral.
Another modification that we'll see in the later drawing is that the truck dock, which we had shown on the access from 5th Street, we reduced the height of that portion of the building, and I'll show you that when I look at the elevations with you. We achieved a reduction in height by removing a boiler plant that was going to be used for this building, substituted with a connection through a utility pipe tunnel under 6th Street to utilize the boiler plant within the hospital itself. And so the height of the truck dock component reduced. In 2014, there was a building code that mandated seismic separations between buildings on lot lines, and so we pulled our back a little bit from adjacent structures as well. Commensurate with the reduction of the floor area and taking the 7th floor off the building, we've been able to reduce the number of required parking spaces from 350 to 318, and as a result, we've eliminated the -3 level of parking which is beneath the building. Proposed building design, which you see on the screen here, has been approved by the Design Review Committee in Park Slope, which includes representatives of Community Board 6, the Park Slope Civic Council, and the Preserve Park Slope group as well. I'm now going to show you a little more detail each facade of the building to show you what we had proposed originally and what we're proposing now, and to show you essentially the building is very much the same. So beginning with the south elevation, which is on 6th Street, opposite the hospital building proper, we've eliminated the 7th floor, so you can see the lower image, the building's a little bit lower by that, and we've reduced the size of the penthouse commensurate with the reduction area in the building. We have not changed the main entrance, we have not changed the building massing components, nor have we changed the building facade materials, but we have refined the detail. You'll see a little more detail around the window elements of the building. The next view is the north elevation, which is facing toward 5th Street, and the original image is on the top and the proposed changes below. Again, the 7th floor illumination and the mechanical penthouse reduction is shown here. The building massing components have remained the same. We have refined the detailing of the facade, including the material change at the top level of the highest floor in this building, and we reduced the height of the truck dock component on the end of the building. Looking now at the east elevation, which faces 8th Avenue and the residents across the street, we've increased the setback on the side of the 6th floor facing toward 5th Street, which is a direct request of the neighbors. We've eliminated the 7th floor and reduced the penthouse as I described previously. And we further refined facade detailing and modified the topmost floor to precast through metal cladding. The last elevation, which is the west elevation, which faces toward 7th Avenue, again, the 7th floor has been deleted. The building massing components, however, remain the same. We further refined the facade detailing, and you can see the truck dock has reduced in height by the deletion of the boiler room that was above it. Retaining certain programs within the main hospital, rather than relocating to the new building, causes a domino effect in the location of programmatic elements. And this is something that Parkinson's been spending a lot of time working with New York Methodist to achieve and to reflect the deletion of radiation oncology and hyperbaric wound care that was described by Ms. Yevak. Programs have been relocated within the building in a way that focuses on maintaining proper adjacencies, proper collection of programmatic elements, in proximity to others when a patient may move within a building. And I'll make this drawing as simple as I can to describe the major components. Looking from the bottom up.
You can take the mic with you and point with it, please.
That's easy. Okay, I'm going to go from the bottom up. In the parking, we've eliminated one level of parking commensurate with the reduction in need. In the cellar area, we've taken out radiation oncology, and we've substituted special procedures that had moved from the second floor of the building. This is a standalone function which works very well with GI spaces which are in that space as well. The first floor has no change other than the title and the pre-admission testing and urgent care functions, but it's essentially the same plan. The second floor, we've relocated special procedures to the cellar and we substituted cardiology, allowing us to have the entire footprint of the east side of the building for a combined total program.
Because cardiology didn't have the full footprint before?
It did before, but the adjacency is closer here. It's directly above imaging, which is below it, so we thought it was a better place, a better adjacency, correct. The third floor has no change, and that remains as I had shown before, with surgery and preparation for that. The fourth floor, where we took out the hyperbaric chambers, we substituted orthopedics, giving it an entire east wing of the building. Orthopedics moved from the fifth floor, and on the fifth floor we substituted women's health, as you can see here. The sixth floor is the cancer center, which had been dispersed on the seventh and sixth floor, but we were able to combine them into a more efficient plan with the same program, but have an entire cancer complex on the same floor, which is a very important element to the operation of that
So on that one,
program.
you were on 2 floors before. Was that a shared floor with anything else?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So what did it share? I don't see 6 listed again on that list. So,
The seventh floor was a smaller floor, so we moved the women's health from the sixth floor, moved down to a lower floor, to the fifth floor, and the cancer center was dispersed in an inefficient way on 2 floors. So we took away a floor, so we put the whole cancer on 1 floor.
So in terms, what kind of activities go on in the cancer center? Is that where you're actually getting infusion, or that's patient?
There were two activities that occur on the sixth floor. On the west half of the building is infusion. You come for chemotherapy. You come in and you have that therapy and you leave. On the east end of the floor are areas for doctors' offices and practice. You may come on a different visit, or you may go back and forth for consultation with your doctor on the same day as your chemotherapy.
Okay, so then,
So that's a very good mixture. The doctors are close, both programs, and the patients can go back and forth between the two.
so in terms of the number of infusion rooms and the number of doctor's offices have...
Has not changed.
No change. So in fact, keeping it off 2 floors, you eliminate circulation
It's much better.
that you get.
Correct, it's a more efficient plan. So the reallocation of space does not impact functional adjacencies within the building, as I've described. In fact, it improves them. The surgical suite, central sterile supplies, and patient preparation and recovery facilities are still located in the west wing of the building, stacked on 3 floors as they had been before, and they're served by dedicated elevators, and it works in a very efficient way. The building's large floor plates allow each institute to be accommodated on a single floor, as I've just described. And with the cancer center, that's the biggest change of improvement to the program. So we believe that these changes allow the building to be redesigned, removing the uppermost story, which had an inefficient floor plate, but resulting in a better building.
One last question, similar subject. You had operatories. Do you still have the same number of
Yes.
operatories and recovery rooms?
No change.
That are...
No change at all.
So that's the main question. The room count for each of the functions
Has remained the same.
remains the same. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So in conclusion, the proposed modifications do not affect the findings required for the grant of the variance. First, no new waivers are needed for the proposed design, and most of the existing waivers would be reduced. Second, the hospital's programmatic needs have not changed. However, with the passage of time, the best means of satisfying those needs changed to some extent. The architects have made design refinements to improve the efficiency of the building so that the building's height can be reduced with only minimal compromise and some improvements as we just discussed. Third, the building massing is appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood, and as mentioned, the Design Review Committee, composed of local representatives, has approved the design. Finally, the hospital's proposal continues to represent the minimum variance necessary, since the changes consist of the reallocation of space and design refinements and do not change the programmatic scope of the variance as granted. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Biden? No? Okay. Are there any speakers on this? Anybody from the public want to speak on this? No? Okay. So is everyone okay with what we're seeing? So thank you very much for the presentation. It clarified a lot of things that were not in the papers. So I would like to make a motion to close. Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson? Aye. Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chandler? Aye. And in the interest of timing for the hospital, I'd like to make a motion to grant. Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson? Aye. Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chandler? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. You're so That's what she needs to know. Thank you. Okay, item number 5, 5795A through 5995A, 473, 475, 474, 475, 476 Central Park, West Manhattan.
Good morning. My name is Allison Jacobs. I'm Associate General Counsel and Attorney for 471, 476 Central Park West owner, LLC, the owner of 473 to 476 Central Park West. I'd like to begin by sharing an email we received from one of our rent-stabilized tenants, the subject of which is, quote, remarkable progress. Dear New Holland, the responsiveness of the repairs crew is incredible. Thank you. It's hard to imagine that a few months ago, the remaining tenants in this building were chipping in to manage things, like debris in the hallways and collapsing ceilings, one of which pinned me down for a moment. And today, I just mentioned a few problems and, like magic, an effective and friendly, efficient crew of workers appears and gets to work. Fixed a leaky pipe spewing water everywhere. Fixed a door breaking off the hinges. Fixed missing tiles in the bathroom. Fixed broken floorboards. Fixed a busted stove. Fixed sink pulling off the wall. I'm impressed with the professionalism and friendliness of the people working to bring this place back. Yesterday, at the executive review session, one board member mentioned that the waiver we seek is a privilege, one it seems that some board members may feel we don't deserve. We're asking the board to not penalize us for the actions of the prior owner, who indisputably left the buildings in a state of disrepair over the course of decades, during which time they received waivers. When I first testified before you on February 2nd, 2016, we had owned the buildings less than 24 hours. When I filed our written submission on March 18th, 2016, updating the board as to our progress, we had owned the buildings less than 50 days. As I stand before you today, we have owned the buildings just over 2 months. And in those 2 months, we have already replaced the 40-year-old boiler, a a feat which takes some companies up to a year to accomplish. We have replaced the pipes which were literally crumbling in the hands of our workers as they removed them, and pipes which were causing extensive leaking throughout the buildings.
Could you just stay there on pipes? Which pipes were replaced?
All of the pipes throughout the building. There was leaking caused in, I believe, several of the apartments in the common areas. And we went through, opened up the walls, took the pipes out, and like I said, they were literally falling
When
apart.
you say all the pipes, I hear all the pipes.
Yes.
All the pipes means every riser that comes from the main, so it's the attachment to the main, bringing it to the branch line, the risers that go all the way up through the building, and all the branches that go to every toilet, every sink, every tub. That's which means an enormous amount of demolition inside the apartments. That's what all the pipes mean. Is that what was done?
I was told that we're in the process of replacing all of the pipes. Whether that's been completed, I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Sure. As such, we make a considerable and positive impact on the lives of our tenants. We are making a difference at these buildings, and we do want to do the right thing. It seems at the last hearing there was a bit of confusion surrounding my testimony, specifically about the extent of renovations and tenant relocations. To be clear, and for the record, any speak of tenant relocation was in the context of making repairs to resolve open HPD violations, should the extent of such repairs require such action. To date, we have removed 83 HPD violations without relocating a single tenant. There was another dismissal request inspection on April 1st, which we expect to have removed dozens more violations. I'd like to remind the board that our goals are aligned. Our goal is to provide a safe building, to resolve all open violations, and to improve the quality of life of all tenants still in occupancy. At the last hearing, we promised to remove all violations, to sprinkler the cellars, and to do what it takes to bring these buildings up to code and make the apartments a place I would live myself. The requirement to fully sprinkler the buildings, as articulated in our written submission, neither exists in the law nor in logic. As such, we are respectfully requesting that the board grant the waiver without the requirement to fully sprinkler the buildings. Thank you.
Okay. So, if you were really replacing all the pipes, installing a sprinkler system wouldn't be that big of a deal, because you're doing a lot of damage to the walls. And in addition, as the fire department pointed out, Commissioner Mishanda and I both discussed, when you have lots and lots of leaks in the building, you have damage to other systems, mainly electrical, which then creates fire hazard. In addition to which, you have incredible mold problems, incredible black mold problems that you don't actually reveal till you remove the wall boards. Or whatever it is, this building may still be plaster on lath, right? So until you remove those things, you don't find what's growing behind the walls. So unless you're willing to make commitments like that, I mean, you guys came in and purchased this building knowing that it was in this really bad condition. Because you want to have any chance of this board being persuaded that those cellar units should continue to be occupied, which, I'm very far away from feeling that way. I would have to know that the place has been completely remediated with respect to mold, that all the systems have been replaced, that you brought the building up to a top level condition. Otherwise, why should we do this? And yeah, maybe you are suffering from the act of the prior owner, but you came into that knowingly. So, and argue with us about whether the building should be sprinklered, that doesn't seem to be off to a good start.
We are willing to do what it takes to bring the buildings up to code. You're correct. I testified at the last hearing. It was the
I didn't
exact
say
state.
code, I actually said beyond code.
Well, right, a place I would live myself, which I just
So the
testified
thing
to.
about code is, unfortunately, code doesn't speak to the fact that the building has been leaking probably for 52 years, right? And that the mold has been growing there, and that who knows what is behind the conditions. For instance, water damage damages structure. Who knows what happens to constant leaking underneath the bathtubs and what's happening on the structure underneath the bathtubs. If you took a bathtub out and you exposed that floor, you might see some really interesting things, right? That's kind of where we are now. That unless you're willing to do something that's extremely heroic in this building, I don't think you have votes to continue the occupancy of the cellar. And what's critical to me is you said at the very beginning, one of the remaining tenants said, the building has been vacated.
No, he said that in his email. I didn't say that. I was just reading his
One of the
email.
remaining tenants?
He said that a few months ago, the remaining tenants in this building were chipping in to manage things. He just said remaining tenants.
Okay, so
I
remaining.
understand your point, but that's just what he said.
Nevertheless, there are 30-something vacant apartments, 34 vacant apartments, right? That tells me clearly that the neglect led to vacancies, either illegal vacancies, they may have been harassed out, because there were lots and lots of complaints at this building, or people just couldn't stand it anymore and moved, right? That leads to vacancy decontrol, which is clearly what's attractive about the upside of this building. And this had been a rent-stabilized building. So from all kinds of perspectives, this just doesn't feel right. You're removing stabilized units from the market, and you want us to sort of facilitate that. And I just don't see it. Anybody else, please feel free.
I fully agree with the chair. It just seems to me that you certainly stand to make an awful lot of money off of the vacant apartments once you rehab them. And I feel that given the fact that, yes, you do have a privilege in having this grant to allow you to have apartments in the cellar, you need to give back to the building and to the community by making the other apartments of maybe not as equal a standard as your market rate apartments, but certainly better than the patch jobs that I viewed in the photos. It wasn't even clear that anything was even done in some of these apartments. It looked like you spackled some plaster on the wall and said, we sealed the wall. That nobody should have to live like that. In fact, our mayor is trying to ensure that nobody has to live like that. And so I think as a board, we have to ensure that all of the tenants in this building can conduct themselves in a dignified manner and have a home that's worthy of calling their own. And so until we see it, maybe we need better photos. Maybe you have done miraculous things to those rent-stabilized apartments, and black and white photos just don't reflect that. But I think you really have to take a step forward and ensure that those rent-stabilized and rent-controlled apartments that are occupied are brought up to a standard that is deserving, that people deserve to have in this city.
I'm just going through the list, Exhibit C that was submitted, and I was just trying to look at all the improvements that has been done to date, and I was matching them against the units. And most of these improvements seem to have been done in the units that are either slated as fair market or, so maybe there were one or two that happened to benefit from the large improvement that had to be done that happened to be rent-stabilized units, but I still don't see the occupied units still being improved upon, at least in the documents that has been provided. I'm glad to hear that one of the tenants is satisfied, but that's just one. And there are so many units that are still occupied, and this document provided is not giving me that level of understanding or clarity that you're stating. So I definitely would like to see a very clear picture of what the timeline of each one of these improvements are going to be, and it cannot be a patch-up job. It has to be a very detailed, systems improvement, because if the pipes are breaking, I'm just thinking now of lead. That's the new thing that's being talked about. So if the pipes are breaking, it's not just the exterior, it's the whole system. So there's a huge amount of system repairs that has to be done, and I really am happy to hear the boiler has been replaced. But with that,
the electrical, all of these things. There are so many programs that are out there in the city's housing programs and state housing programs that allows these improvements to happen in a very efficient way where, it can be done. And this is not our place to say that, but this is maybe something to look into to see how you can use some of these programs to expedite these improvements that you've taken on. And I'm really glad that your organization wants to make these improvements and see how these improvements can be done in the most expeditious way, thoroughly, and allows these tenants to stay on and allowing for you to make the financial gain that you need to do, which I guess that's the reason why you bought these properties.
I think another layer of this is, by being before us, this building is going to be under intense scrutiny. The fire department is going to be actively involved in what you do. We're going to be looking at every detail of what it is you're doing to bring this building up to a standard that we think is appropriate to warrant the continuation or the grant of these seller units. You may decide financially it's not making any sense to you because by code you can do those things that you talked about before, not sprinkler the upper floors, only meet the HPD and DOB violations and so on, and that's the end of it, and operate the building however it was you were intending to operate the building before. So if you did the math, you might find that we're not doing you any favors. We're going to cost you a lot of money here. And that's, from my perspective, the only way I would consider this grant is if you replace all the systems, which includes the gas lines, which I'm even afraid to think about if they've been so neglected. And that's another thing the fire department will get into, right? And especially these days, the city is so vigilant about the gas lines. And that's super expensive. Each one of these things is super expensive, so you should take that back to discussion with people who manage the company, and also the next time you should come here with a person who's very familiar with the systems, so that you don't tell us that all the pipes are being replaced when only some of them are being replaced, for example, because that's not going to work, right?
Well, just to be clear, I said all of the pipes are being replaced. They will be
You
replaced. Are they
started
all
off
replaced?
saying all the pipes have been replaced, and when I said all the pipes, then I went through it, and then you said, well, I have been told. So that's the problem. It's not your fault. You're the lawyer. You're not the installer of the pipes. You're not the person who's managing construction. The person who's managing the construction should be here to tell us what's being done if you decide to go ahead with this, because you may decide, looking at the numbers, that this makes no economic sense at all, and that those cellar units should just be abandoned and turned into like community space and nicer laundry and a space for the super to do whatever kind of work the super has to do, which you don't currently have. Plus, we don't know what those subterranean, what are those deeds are? The unit deeds,
473 and 476.
Right, I recall you mentioning this yesterday at the executive review session. The reason it's placed in the stacking plan below the cellar units, I agree with you, it is a little confusing. The reason we put it down there is because with the rest of the building, there is no unit D, there is no that line. So there just happens to be more in the apartment than the rest of the building. So instead of putting D on the side and then having like nothing in the rest of the columns throughout the building, we just kind of slid it over to the
D is a
side.
cellar unit?
It is, correct. It's not, I understand why that's confusing.
Even more units in the cellar than there are in the upper floors?
I believe it's for the two buildings where there's that one unit that's mentioned, correct?
Just two. But still, it goes back to the question of, we have more units in the basement where we typically don't allow any habitable space, and we need to ensure that there is the proper fire safety measures that are being done that would satisfy FDNY, and we would feel comfortable with granting it.
One more thing I'd like to point out, something that I mentioned in my testimony earlier. As of today, we've owned the buildings about 2 months and 3 days. Perhaps we've made a lot of changes in that period of time, but perhaps it seems like the board wants to see everything at the level of completion, right? Right now, we're still very much in the process of resolving things. We did replace the boiler, but again, there's a lot that needs to be done by way of electrical work, plumbing, We need to finish all of the repairs. Again, we had an HPD inspection on the 1st. We expect most of those violations to be resolved then. Perhaps it makes sense for us to come back in a few months and come back and show you more of the progress that we've made. Again, it's been 2 months.
In terms of your financial interests, I'm trying to imagine being the client, right? Being the owner of all of these buildings. What you really should do is sit down and do an analysis of the scope of the work that reflects what we're talking about. And run the numbers on that and see whether you can amortize that adequately for the seller units. Because until we see a plan for all of that work to be done, I don't think you have the votes you need to get these seller units approved. So I think actually you should come back sooner or later with a plan. What it is you're planning to do, what the extent of the work is. Some of it isn't, most of it is not repair work, it's replacement work, right? It's opening walls, it's removing sheetrock and plaster and all of that down to the bones to be sure that you've remediated all the mold, which is surely there, which means removing bathtubs, which normally you would do when you're renovating anyway, but maybe you weren't planning to, so that you can see the structure underneath the bathtubs, etc. I mean, there's crazy stuff that's gone on in these buildings over all of these years, and a lot of it is probably just held together with spit and glue, you know? And that's not okay anymore.
We could go through some of these things with another staff level and do it there, so that there's, so it's like, there's a lot of details here, and I don't know how much we want to just kind of,
Well, you had
board's time spent on
previously said that you were going to do a gut renovation, and I think that's what we were assuming, that there was going to be a gut renovation, that everything was going to be replaced, all the walls were going to be removed, and the buildings were going to be brought up to code and in tip-top shape, so.
Correct, we spoke of renovating the vacant units, 34 of the, I believe it's 75. And those units, we will be replacing certain features. Again, that's something, none of the work has started in any of those units yet. We have been really focusing, our guys have been in the building, they're literally there the day we closed, they've been there every day since, doing work. We're really focusing on the common areas, those HPD violations, those tenants in occupancy, those are the people that are really feeling it. Those are the
But
people
it
we've been focusing on.
sounds like some of the work you might have to do twice. You know, do the repair, and then when you do the gut renovation, which is what we want, you have to just take things out that you already replaced and do it over.
It's not
So it's
efficient.
yes.
And you're opening the walls anyway. I mean, if you are indeed replacing piping, you're opening the walls, you're going to be opening a lot of the floors. So you might as well take that as an opportunity as opposed to, well, we'll just, we see 2 feet of pipe that we need to replace, we'll just replace that. Take that opportunity because you have to do it anyway. Take it and say, okay, we have to really look at the entire building systems. We're opening the walls anyway. If we put in a sprinkler system, maybe no harm, no foul, because you've got those walls open. So instead of just doing the patch jobs now and sort of cosmetic and what will help people not see, an active leak, take this as an opportunity for yourself. I think you might be better off. And,
Is there anything else you wanted? I have nothing further to add, only, I guess, what the next steps would be for us to present something to the board in a few months, for you to provide a list of things that you're specifically looking to see, just so we have sort of a game plan
we
moving
won't
forward.
provide the list, we've just given you, so it might be helpful if you have your project manager listen to this video.
Sure.
Because I think that a person who does this for a living will understand what we mean. And then, based on what we said at the hearing, your construction manager, project manager, puts together a plan for what's going to be done. And by the way, what I wanted to say was, the fire department pointed out in their letter that the last time you were here, you had said that you were going to be renovating entirely these vacant apartments, moving tenants into those vacant apartments temporarily so that you could go into those tenant apartments and do that kind of work there. So it wasn't only work in the vacant apartments, and we're not talking about only work in the vacant apartments, we're talking about work throughout the building. The whole idea is to keep those tenants in those stabilized units, and not have the whole building become market rate based on what I view as warehousing, which is what the prior owner did to enable vacancy decontrol. Right.
Well, to the extent of the testimony at the last hearing, I tried to clarify that in my testimony today, perhaps I'll try again. The extent of the relocation for tenants and occupancy was simply the extent of the HPD repairs that were necessary. As the board's aware, there were a lot of HPD violations that needed work. There needed to be a lot done in the apartments. We were speaking as to potential relocation should the extent of the work require that. I remember specifically speaking if we had to do extensive work to a tenant's bathroom, for example. We wouldn't want to leave a tenant without a working bathroom. We would potentially relocate them given the extent of the vacancies in the buildings. However, to date, we've removed 83 HPD violations and haven't had to relocate anyone because the repairs were done very quickly and efficiently.
Okay.
So that, just to clarify, that's what we were discussing. We weren't discussing, moving everybody out and totally redoing their apartment and then giving a rent-stabilized tenant back a brand-new apartment. That wasn't the extent of what we were discussing. We were discussing...
What we're discussing now, right?
Just something just occurred to me. I think from everything that you're hearing, it's a great opportunity and a time to kind of look at the entire building. And I'm thinking of kind of programs that I was familiar with when I was at HPD. And what we would typically have developers do is kind of reassess all the issues that are outstanding in the building, kind of identify all the lists, unit by unit, common area by, building by, system by, everything. Kind of list that, then you identify how each one of those are going to be improved upon. And I think that list would be very helpful for you going forward as to know the extent of the work that would need to be done, and how each one can be done. Then you can bring in each trade to have each one of those improved rather than doing checkerboard. And I think that would address a lot of our concerns. That's just a suggestion, and I think Brian and all of them will give you proper guidance.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any speakers on this? Fire department, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Anthony Scaduto for the Fire Department. A lot of the letter that I sent to the board was based on Ms. Jacobs' testimony last time, and a lot of my statement today is also based on Ms. Jacobs' testimony. I know she's being sincere, but I'm not sure that the management of the building and building loans, New Holland, are being upfront and honest with her when they're providing her information. When you come to a place like the board and you say that all pipes are being replaced, I certainly, as a building inspector, expect to see permits issued by the Department of Buildings to do the major replacement of piping. This is not just a haphazard changing a faucet. What Ms. Jacobs is presenting to you today is that based on the horrible conditions of the building, the intent is to replace all the piping. I'll be flexible and I'll assume all the piping means all piping necessary for repairs. I believe that's what her next statement is going to be down the road. But even with that, permits need to be issued. Applications need to be made to the DOB. This is not just coming in and fixing a leaky faucet. By the same token, Ms. Jacobs has said today that the intent is to make all the necessary electrical repairs and modifications. Again, this is not something where, Joe's going to come in and just, put in a new switch. If we're talking about electrical modifications, we're talking about permits being issued. My quoting her from the first hearing, basically, that's what I used as the basis for my letter. And at the time, the impression was that these were all gut renovations. Now, if we're opening walls and everything else, and this is really, the gist of my statement right now is the financial situation. The building department has standards as to when a building must be brought up to current code. And that standard, I believe, her own people quoted as being 54%. Well, I don't know what the building costs, we'll have to check that, but it seems to me that the amount of renovations that we are being led to believe are being done may in fact actually approach 54% of the value of these buildings. If that's the case, then my request to have the building fully sprinkled is moot, because by code, she has to have her clients install sprinklers, because she's doing that much of a renovation. Now, I understand as you know, as a building owner, that, you know, we like to only pay for things that are going to generate income. Unfortunately, when a company comes in and buys a depressed building like this and gets the benefit of being able to, with renovations, obviously, they're making their investment, when they get the benefits of now bringing apartments back into the market at full market rates, I think they also have a responsibility to step up and to do something over and above strictly by the definition of the code. One of the things I'm recommending to the board is perhaps, before any work continues, perhaps a financial statement should be done as to what's exactly being intended on an apartment-by-apartment basis, if in fact they are making major renovations or if they're just changing fixtures, because the statement that all the pipes are being changed bothers me. With that, I just stand by the fire department's original position that I think this building, regardless of code-specific requirements, I think this building is a perfect candidate, seeing that we're bringing older buildings, we're keeping them in the building stock of our city. I think it's, all of us involved in the real estate industry have a responsibility to make sure that safety features are also brought up to modern standards, even if not required by code. And thank you very much.
Thank you. So, to that, there are no other speakers? To Mr. Scaduto's point, there are no permits for 473 was the one I just looked at. I don't know if there are other ones. So it's true that you're absolutely not allowed to replace all of the pipes. The only time that you can not obtain a permit is when you're replacing a toilet with a toilet and you're not doing anything else. A sink with a sink, and you're not doing anything else. So the absence of the permit tells us that's all that's going on, or the work being done illegally, which is also really bad. And there's no electrical permits, there's nothing. So we're not feeling good about this. So what I would suggest is we have one more hearing on this. If you present us with a plan that shows that which you've studied, because if I were in your position, I would not go for this request. Where you've studied the scope of the work that we're asking to be done, and you've come out with a pricing and a work plan and all of that, which includes pulling permits for everything. If you intend to proceed with that, that's another question. If you decide that you're not going to do that, then we'll just hold the hearing and we're going to be done with this case. We're going to vote no. Okay. So, based on what I'm hearing, what I'm going to recommend, a no vote. So, based on that, I think a month to prepare those materials should be enough. So, okay, a month should be enough. So if you submit on May 4th, that work plan with costs, so that, or you don't have to show us the costs, but you do need to know the costs, because you can't make a representation that you're going to do it if you don't know the costs in advance and figure them out against the value of those seller units. Come back for a continued hearing May 24th. What? Yeah, 1 month to prepare, May 4th. Yes, May 24th. Thank you.
Item number 6, 186 8BZ, 3065 Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn.
Good morning, Chairperson and Pro-Mayor Commissioners, and greetings on a very cold spring day. As per the, if you...
I'm sorry.
James, Mr. E. Goffenau, owner and chairman of the Board of Trustees of Followers of Jesus Mennonite Church, appearing on behalf of Mr. Patrick Fortune, PE.
Did you submit any papers?
No, we didn't, and I am prepared to address the reason for that if I may make one other observation first. I'm sure the board is not unaware of the work of the zoning commission and also the planning commission for the East New York Community Plan. And that community plan, among other things that are projected for our neighborhood, involves from Pennsylvania Avenue to past Logan Street on Atlantic Avenue, the rezoning of most or all of those properties to an R8. The Planning Commission has voted 12-1 to approve the plan. It's my understanding that the City Council is tentatively scheduled to vote on the plan 2 weeks from tomorrow, on April 20. And following that, both the Zoning Commission and Planning Commission have assured us that upon the City Council's vote and possibly the mayor's signature, that we would at that point be basically instantaneously rezoned as an R8, and everything that we're presently using the building for in the proposed renovation would all be permitted as of right, which would make the special permit moot. And so Mr. Fortune has asked me to explore with the examiner and the board's representatives the process by which we might withdraw this application, assuming that happens.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. We just submit a letter asking to abandon the special permit, and it's helpful to have the reason, because we don't want to just create non-conforming uses all over the place, but you are in the rezoning area?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 3065 is on Atlantic Avenue, the R8.
I would recommend that we just take this off calendar and then let them vote, and then after the vote at City Council, submit a letter to us, and we'll issue a letter to, we issue a letter to buildings, right? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And the exact terminology that we're asking for is a letter to the board to abandon.
Yeah, it's a letter of no objection. It's surrender of the grant.
Yeah, it's the surrendering.
It's surrendering the grant. It's actually a little different. Yeah, we can talk to you about the technical aspect of that.
Mr. Fortune asked me to get that information if someone's available to provide that off record.
So it would be easier if had before, you wouldn't have had to come to this hearing, right? If you had just called our executive director, Ryan.
Yeah, Mr. Fortune was endeavoring, in fact, to make several of those contacts over the past number of weeks, and for one reason.
The project manager talked to him on Wednesday, and this was not conveyed to the project manager. That he was instructed to give us a letter of adjournment.
Right,
So,
because we didn't
we didn't know. Yeah.
And we, in fact, have known of this potentiality for probably a year or more, but there was no specific deadlines and no specific votes. It's been in community hearings and everything. So this is the first meeting at which we actually have a calendar for approval of the project, which is why we have not introduced this information before.
All right, so we'll just take this off the calendar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Continue hearing items, item number 7, 35-10BZ, 144-1177 Avenue, Queens.
Is there anyone here for this? No? Okay, they just wanted to adjourn. Right, so this one, we took it off the calendar in July of last year. It was adjourned at the very first scheduled hearing in February, and now they want to adjourn it effectively a year later from the year after we took it off the calendar. I'm not really sure what's going on with this.
Calendar again?
Yeah, we're sure that they'll come back.
Yeah, we can numerous calls to staff.
launching the vote for not having this on the calendar sooner.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether we should take it off calendar. I mean, I don't know what the holdup is. If there's nobody here from Mr. Lobel's office. So why do we take this off the calendar? Find out what's really going on. Have a submission, and then we can put it back on the calendar. Yeah, because it's been a year, nothing. Okay.
Item number 8, 227-10BZ, 20412 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Hello, good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Eric Black. Well, you've seen we've been successful in evicting the tenant. And I was past the site the other day, and I don't know if you've had the chance to be past the site, but the cars are all gone. The site is cleaned up tremendously. And then just to remind the board, this is a site that was under the control of Getty Petroleum, who went bankrupt. We inherited a lessee, a tenant who kept the place shabbily. And I'd like to say that Getty didn't do much better of a job before that lessee was in place. The site has a long history, and now with a new operator and owner, British Petroleum Corporation, the corporation themselves, BP Products North America, it's a company on site, it's under their full control, and they are anxious to redevelop the site and bring it into pristine condition in accordance with all the requests of the board. So we heard your request yesterday, specifically with respect to the oil tank. The oil tank can be used as part of the redevelopment of the site. Should your board approve the application, we're going to have contractors on site that are pulling out all of the underground storage tanks on the site, and when they do that, they'll also be removing that oil tank from its location. And with your board's consent, we'd like to move it to the left side of the building, to the area behind the dumpsters, which is up against the commercial building on that side. It would still be about 6 or 7 feet off of the rear property line, but it would be further away from the property line, wedged between our building and the back part of the commercial retail building that's to the left of us.
So you're creating that little enclosure around the dumpsters?
Right.
Why can't it be up against the back of the fence?
It can be, just so it's out of the way. The architect, the engineer just wants to look to see the dumpster movement, how those roll, as on wheels. And he just
so they're
wants to
gonna
make
take-
sure that the dumpsters could get out, because obviously the dumpsters have to be moved all the time. But that would be the intention, is to be moved as close to that fence as we can. If not, even if we have to move the fence up a few feet. But we'll look at ways to reconfigure that side of the property so that we accomplish that goal. And we'll come back and show you. The only request we would make is that you allow us to condition that in the approval, so that when we're ripping up the entire site, and all the contractors are on the site, it could all be done at the same time.
So, replacement of the underground storage tanks would happen immediately, is that what you're saying?
Upon approval, they're chomping at the bit. The emails on my side of the fence are, when can we get in there, when can we get in there, when can we get in there? British Petroleum is lined up and ready to go to start tearing the site apart and fixing everything up.
So the problem is they need a permit in order
We
to
need a
start
permit in order to do so we need a permit from you. So we're waiting on this process to complete.
That's reasonable. Okay, chopping at the...
Yeah, no, they're very anxious. Well, they make a lot of money from the site. It's an income-generating site. The condition it's in right now is not near its potential.
All right, and then, whether the community, So the only thing, so you're going to be digging up the site, so then there was also, let's see. So you can't strike the parking because you're digging up the site?
No, but everything will be done when it's all put back together again.
Okay, and ditto the landscaping, it would, and dumpster
Everything.
enclosure?
The site's gonna be fenced off, shut down, and it's gonna be put back together fully in accordance with the board's plans.
Any other questions, comments? Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so I think what would work is do 5 years. What's the preference in terms of the leash?
They have to give us a revised plan.
Oh, right, we still have to get a reply, yeah, but revised plan, but we could still close with revised plan. Okay, so we can discuss the term. So you give us a revised.
We'll give you a revised plan.
Right.
The only thing I'd say, I mean, it's sort of torn here, is the zoning attorney who profits when I come back with applications, especially for companies such as British Petroleum. I'm happy to come back every 5 years. But on behalf of my client, I'd ask that you give them the consideration of 10, only because it's a new operator, it's a national corporation, they have a very strong track record, they've been before your board repeatedly with different sites, they maintain their sites well, and the problems that you, as you've been witnessing through this, and the problems that you've encountered up until now have been due to the actions of other players that are no longer involved in the site. So we'd ask that you take it into consideration, hopefully, and give them the benefit of the time.
Okay, so because we need this revised site plan, though, we can only close today?
Thank you.
Okay, so motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Nixon? Aye. Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley-Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
You can do the 12.
12?
Yeah, because you've got 21.
Do you have enough time to move
The plan by submitted in the next few days?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Yes, we'd be happy to.
It's just a plan, right?
Yeah, it's a very simple fix. They could do that in a day easily.
Yeah, okay, so the 12th, just to put it as soon as...
We'll submit it this week, you'll have it by the end of the week. Thank you.
So decision April 12th?
Yeah.
Item number 9, 16-12BZ, 184 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Good morning, Jessica Rubenstein on behalf of Eric Klatnick, PC. We heard the board's comments at yesterday's review session, and we know the board is still concerned about the use of the auditorium as a banquet hall. As the board knows, we submitted a weekly schedule for the auditorium showing how it will be used by the students for gym, dance, prayers, and other regular programs. As well, we also submitted an annual schedule describing the yearly events such as fundraisers, holiday parties, and teacher expositions. In light of the materials submitted, we still maintain the position that it will be used for school use. If it is the plan's design, specifically that middle lobby, that is causing the board to second-guess the validity of our position and the materials that we submitted, the project architect is here today to discuss removing that wall between the auditorium and that lobby while keeping the door as a means of egress in order to alleviate the board's concerns. So I'd like to introduce the project architect to speak about that.
My name is Felix Tambasco, the architect of this particular project. I'd like to address the issue regarding the auditorium.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Move the microphone, we can't hear you at all. If you want to hold the mic up clear, yeah. And then restate your name.
Good morning, my name is Felix Tambasco, I'm the project architect for this particular project, and I would like to discuss the egress issues and the auditorium. I understand the board's concern regarding the second lobby issue, and it is proposed, and with the board's permission, we can remove the demising partition between the auditorium and what I call now a corridor, and we can incorporate that space into the auditorium while maintaining the egress doors so we can maintain the safety of the space.
So will the auditorium now move further right and the corridor that is to the
Further right? No, we're talking about the middle outline.
No, the auditorium would stay essentially where it is. What would happen is we would integrate that space, which now has the exit doors, into the auditorium, and there'd be no separation between that space and the auditorium.
No, okay, so then you're creating an access directly from the street to the auditorium, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So that's not what we've been talking about all this time. What we've been saying is, you have, I don't know how many children there are on each side of the building, but remembering what it was like to go to auditorium, which I remember because it's one of those traumatic experiences you have where every child in the building is running down the stairs at the same time and you better keep
That's
up.
fun.
Right? Not saying it's not fun, but at the same time, you remember that crush down the stairs, right? And so, what you're doing is, half the kids on each floor are running down those two stairs, right, on each stair.
Sure.
They're crushing down the stairs, and then they get to the first floor, and there's one door that swings open, and they have to run through that door, wind around this area. It's obvious to us from a circulation point of view that that is not the principal connection. That's not the purpose of that connection. Because if you've not been more interested in accessing the auditorium from the street, there would have been an open flow between the lobby and the auditorium. You have clogged up the lobby and the auditorium with an elevator, with a men's toilet, which I'm not even sure why it's there, if it's not for the purpose of that we're talking about, with an office, with a big closet, things like that. I'm looking at maybe a little bit older plan, but still, there's a lot of clogging going on, and as opposed to the other side, for example, which would be more typical, the side that's called the women's entrance, right? That one, the flow from the staircase is quite direct into the corridor, and then you can flow right into the auditorium. That's more believable. But the other side, it looks like there's two functions. So it seems to me that the only way that you could persuade us is that you eliminate all that sort of extraneous stuff and you make this a devoted single lobby. It's not the idea of eliminating the second lobby exactly, but creating a devoted lobby that really looks like its purpose is to get the students from upstairs into this space, and it's not just an afterthought.
Well, in response, we could possibly do as you suggested, but the elevator is essential to the school, and the elevator's positioned in such a way so that it serves the upper floors in the best possible way.
But how is it essential to the school if it's not even related to the principal lobby of the school?
Well, it's essential because it would only be used for the handicap, obviously, and it's going to be used to move in it's an oversized elevator, as you can see. It's going to be used to bring in materials and to service the school's functions upstairs, desks, chairs.
How could it be used to do what you're saying when its connection to the exterior is so bizarre? And you have to go up 2 steps in order to get to it. If you're bringing in a desk, for example, now the guys have to carry it up 2 steps and turn on, which is even the door. The door is up through those. Here's the door. You're going up multiple steps to get to this elevator. It's just the weirdest thing.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, it's on the same level as the main lobby, the elevator. If you walk through the lobby and exit through the stair, that's all at one level.
So you go through the main lobby, you go through one set of double doors that swing in opposite you, another set that swings in the direction you're going. You make this tight turn to the elevator to get into, I don't even know where the door is, right on that side, on the side door, with a desk. So it's kind of like the plan tells us everything. It's like this open book thing, the plan. Could I ask what that void is behind the elevator, between the elevator and the front wall?
This is the secondary, because there are different levels, as you pointed out. The elevator has 2 stops at that level.
How do you get to
To accommodate, if you were coming from the upper floors and you wanted to get to the auditorium, it would be either, you would go to the second stop on the first floor. There'd be a lobby A and a lobby B, basically.
But I have a huge pinch point there that I can't get through. How do I get there? It looks like it's...
We'll put the dimensions on Eric 11.
We don't need the dimensions. We need to believe, and right now we don't believe.
But that's purely, if I may, that particular exit from the elevator is purely for those who are handicapped.
But you can't get to the door. If you go up from that second lobby, You go through those triple doors on the second lobby. You want to take the elevator. Either you go up those 2 steps or you take that little lift. Yeah.
You don't have to go up those 2 steps. That's the purpose of that corridor to the right of the stairs. That corridor and that landing is all at the same level. So when you go down that, yes, if you were coming from the street, you'd have to go down those stairs. But if you were coming from above,
No, let's stay on the street. That's what we're talking about. What is that?
well, if you were coming from the street, there's a little handicap lift to the right.
Yeah, got that. But then you go left, and then how do you get into the elevator? What's that strange little corridor thing between the elevator?
Eric Palatnik, we'll provide a circulation plan to show you. What you would do is you walk down the stairs, you make a left, and you go through that corridor on the right side of the elevator to the opening that would be between the street and the elevator itself. We're going to provide you with dimensions that show you can clearly fit. I don't know how much more the applicant's intention here is not to run a catering hall. They're in the school business. They're not in the catering business. They're here for students.
And then what's strange about this is, I think it's pointed out a couple of hearings ago, is the prior auditorium that was in the cellar had this totally direct, easy, completely believable connection to the school above. This has a totally indirect, not believable connection. And plus it has the meat kitchen attached to it, it has men's rooms, women's rooms.
Well, if I could, one by one, and of course I can't, I don't have any magic wand, of course, to make you believe what we're saying or not, but let's start with the premise that we're here on behalf of the school that's been before this board for 7 years to build a school. So the school is not here to do anything fraudulent or to create anything that's not proper. They're not deceiving the board. If we wanted a banquet hall, we heard your review session yesterday, and Madam Chair, you were very eloquent at the review session, it's very clear, saying that if we wanted a banquet hall, put the banquet hall on the plans, and we could amend the application. We're here to tell you we don't want a banquet hall, but when we had to raise the building and shift around floors within the building, we had to reconfigure the Jenga puzzle that we have. The plan that we have in front of you, it shows the lobby with the men's entrance to the men's room is there. We're willing to remove that. We're willing to remove the men's room. We're willing to remove all of the partitions in that area to show the board the good faith of the applicant that there's no desire at all to have any men in that area at all or have any separate vestibule for them. At that point, the staircase that leads down on the left side of the building will be just exactly similar to the staircase on the right side of the building that the board just indicated they were happy with. It'll open up into a lobby that'll then feed into this auditorium. That's the intent. The auditorium is necessary, as you just said. You had many class activities. You found them to be traumatic when everybody was in the hallway, you mentioned, but everybody was coming into the hallways. It's the same thing here. Everybody's going into the auditorium. There are events in the auditorium that obviously the auditorium is necessary for the use of the space as a school. So we're trying to accommodate the board. The opening to the street is necessary to meet code requirements. If we could seal that opening, we would be happy to, but we're not permitted to under the building code.
Okay, so under the building code, you're permitted to slide the elevator back up against the street wall, which as we see it, houses a toilet on every floor, for unknown reason. Or something, I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's a slop sink? What is that? And then make it more believable that you actually do have an entrance to the elevator.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not following what
The
you're...
elevator, part of what makes this not work is the elevator is pulled forward, which necks down the access to the auditorium to the point where it's not believable that that's really the access to the auditorium. There doesn't seem to be any reason for the elevator being where it is.
We're happy to move the elevator back. It's another handicap plus the elevator's another handicap. You're spending $4 million to build the building, you can buy one more handicap.
You're not going to move it. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe that statement was not for us to hear, but I think by moving that elevator back toward the wall, I think if this elevator is going to be used for any kind of servicing, for handicap person, for anything, it just makes the movement of all of that much better. And then you have a space by that elevator. I mean, you still can open the door.
No, we're happy to. You're saying to slide it back against the wall, right? Yeah, no, we're happy to do that.
Yeah.
No, that statement, that wasn't not meant to be heard by the board. They're spending a tremendous amount of money building the building. A lift should be the least of the financial concerns that they're confronting as they construct the building.
And maybe at that location, I don't know how much of a length of a ramp you need for an AD accessibility from that upper level to the other. If you remove all the men's toilet and all the other places, you will have enough.
We'll have enough room to swing a ramp, to zigzag a ramp.
True, and you really then open up that space and you make it easier for all the goods to go back and forth rather than having to go.
We could put the ramps there.
Well, you don't even need that. If you drop your elevator to your entry out to the street elevation, and instead of having an elevator that has a door, on either side like that, do a door on the side, and then have direct access from the street to your elevator, which is what you want if it's a freight elevator of some kind. And then on the subsequent floors above, you have that, you have the other door. In addition to which you eliminate totally your stair lift. You don't need the stair lift. So
We'd be happy to do that.
so let's see that happen.
All right, so we're back to the drawing board, but we think we can provide that.
And then it provides you enough sort of platform area to stage whatever you want to put into the elevator. This way, you're basically in the stair circulation pattern, and, anybody with a pallet or anything that's big, while the kids are trying to get through, it's not happening.
We'd be happy to do that, easy.
Okay, moving on. We need to correct the references to a 3-story plus cellar building. It's a 4-story building.
Yeah, that was the part earlier in the day when I said we make mistakes too.
We need a room schedule that's really a room schedule on a chart that shows every room used, like you did for the auditorium. I don't know if your environmental consultant is here, but we need you to verify
Yes.
your environmental.
Nancy Newman, Sandstone is here, she'd be happy to speak.
Okay.
State your name, please.
Nancy Newman, Sandstone Environmental Associates.
So you had in your recommendations, among other things, for the roof, an 8-foot parapet. Can you verify on the drawings that the extent of the 8-foot parapet is what you had in mind? Because it's not a very extensive high parapet.
Okay, this hasn't really changed. This was on there before, and the parapet would be on it would not be on the Nostrand side of the roof. It would be on the Sanford side of the roof because that's where the BBC building is. And it's partly to protect it from noise from the chiller. And also it partly protects, there are just to the north, adjacent on the north side of the building are 2 single-family residential buildings. And it also provides some additional barrier between the 3rd-floor playground and those buildings. So it's along that side. That side also has a 9-foot-high big storage area. So between that and the 8-foot-high parapet, that protects those residential buildings. The 8-foot-high parapet along the Sanford, the Sanford side of the building protects it from noise from the chillers. The building is now higher than the chiller.
Okay, so the building is a little bit L-shaped, right? So when you say the Sanford side, do you mean the entire lot line?
Yes,
including that L?
Yes, I see it on the L here. I see it on the L here. So it's basically between the 3rd-floor playground area and the Van Blarken building that's got the chiller on it.
Okay, so we could just verify that the drawings are clearly marking 8-foot parapet that goes from basically the intersection of that side wall with Willoughby. I'm trying to get the roof plan up right now. There we go. To the street. Willoughby. Yeah, so it's the intersection of that wall with Willoughby, then continuing all the way around to the other property line. Because it's not clear what the extent of the parapet is. But it doesn't say Yeah, because here you have 3'6" parapet once it hits sort of the street. And I think your only intention, I may be wrong, but the 8-foot parapet is only along sort of the western edge that... The long western edge. Yeah, the long western edge, not the short wall. Right. So it doesn't seem like the 8-foot parapet is doing what is recommended.
It is according to the way that I analyzed it, because the drawings I have show the 8-foot high parapet.
Not the ones, can we see that one? It's the same. Is it the same drawing? Fine. The one that we have? Oh, so yours is different. Okay, it shows 8 foot here, but you're missing the other part. On our drawing, it shows that this is 6 feet. So, yeah, just make sure that we can understand where you need the 8 feet. Okay, and then with respect to that, we also want your recommendation about noise attenuation and closed window conditions and no play on the roof, on the second floor roof. This should be shown on the plan. So if you could check that the notes for attenuation and closed window condition are on the plans as well.
We'll coordinate with the architect on that.
Right, thank you. Okay,
I had wanted to know about, we're still required to have a sub-slab depressurization system.
Yes, and in fact, I had mentioned that in my memo. It was like the second to last paragraph on page 7. I just didn't use that particular term.
Okay.
For the mitigation of potential vapor intrusion.
Oh, all right. I was looking for SSDS.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is
What is it called?
sub-slab depressurization system.
But your note was
Vapor mitigation.
It's to prevent potential vapor migration into the building, vapor intrusion.
And then you did this discussion regarding the cogeneration units. Now, they don't exist as of now?
No, they do exist. When we were doing this a couple of years ago, VBC refused to give us any information, and they had not yet filed a permit with DEP. So we were going by, and what was available was they had a permission to install, which was for 156 Sanford, which is also their headquarters office. And it's very typical for a permit to be issued to the address that's the headquarters, because obviously they don't have updates and stuff coming to some factory building, So we assumed, based on that, that was going to be 156 Sanford Street. That's where we modeled them. When it came time to do the update here, we were out in the field, and it's like, oh, look, these are sitting on top of 170 Sanford Street.
Which is directly adjacent to the school?
It's across the street on Sanford. Adjacent to the school, I think, is 151 Sanford, and then 170 is right across that. It's on the corner of Sanford and Willoughby.
So it's across the street?
Yes. I mean, there's a building in between, the building with the chillers in between, but then they're across on the other side of the street. And you can clearly see them. You can see the units, you can see the 12 stacks coming up. So we changed the model. Now, they have a permit for them now, and we use the updated information. So the fact that they're closer makes it more of a worst case. But we had modeled them for running 24 hours a day, and they're only running 12, so that's a little bit of a lesser case. So that's what we modeled them for. But they're brand new. They have low emission levels, and the emissions from those particular units are really very low. They're not emission.
Okay.
And then, you didn't do the traffic study though, right?
No, we did not do the traffic study.
Good. Is there anything else on this one? No. Okay, thank you very much. And then the traffic study, we just needed
The
the diagram updated to show all those changes.
We'd be happy to provide that. We spoke to Hiram already.
Great. Okay. Are there any speakers on this? Yes, Mr. Huffman. Please be careful. Thank you. Okay, answer me.
Good morning. My name is Louis Cologne. I'm the president of the Block Association on Hart Street. I'm currently affiliated with 3 other blocks. And we've been addressing this issue for quite a while. We did did a study, we did a book standards and appeals office and report all of the records for this particular site. There was a lot of problems there, traffic, toxins underground, and, the impact on the neighborhood. We have a lot of elderly in that area. There's a lot of asthma problems in that area. When they first came out to do to demolish the building, they didn't encapsulate the building as required by the EPA study. And also, the fact that there was no coring done before they even started to do the demolition of the building to find out what the toxins were. It was mercury, lead, and you name it, it's there. Since 1957, this building operated as a facility for cascading all of the mechanics for all of their trucks. We haven't seen that. We've kept tabs on what was happening. We even have to have them put a walkway for the current pedestrians that walk in the area. We have a school across the street. We have heavy-duty traffic here constantly. We just changed all the traffic patterns. We have a selective bus service. We have a regular bus service. We have cars that park on both sides. And we have lost all of that. We can't even park there. And it's been a real impact to our community with this project. And we want to address the issue. We have a petition. We have submitted petitions before, and for some reason, they weren't in the records. When we went to look for them, they did not appear. So that's where we're at right now. It's back to the same thing. We're concerned now with the toxins underground, because when they did encapsulate the building and they started demolishing the building, they never wet the structure as it was going down. All that air, airborne particles were going over the neighborhood. We were getting sick, respiratory sickness, residents. So we want to make sure this time that if they do go underground, that before they put this auditorium below ground the way they want it, that it's properly done so that our community doesn't suffer. Because a lot of things get done, but they don't look at the impact of the middle of the neighborhood. And that's the problem. We also have a lot of buses. The yeshivas all of them have buses, and they park on our residential streets. It's not supposed to be done. We've had a big problem with that. We've been calling the police department to make sure that, they tell them we have to move it off our streets. Because we suffer we started for parking in our neighborhoods. Now you got a bus that takes up 2 or 3 cars. And it's become a problem. So, having said that, I just want to see if this could be disapproved or allowed until they get all of their act together, especially with the environmental impact study and the traffic study, which we didn't get the first time.
Okay, so this application is subject to an environmental assessment review, which we're currently conducting. Some of the testimony you just heard was from an environmental consultant. There's also a separate person who's a traffic consultant. So we're looking at those things, and we posed many questions about that, okay? So the environmental is being regulated, okay?
Are they going to be quarrying, like they're supposed to see what the toxins are on there?
There has been a they've conducted a phase 2 analysis, right? Phases? Yeah. Nancy, okay, okay. So we can have the environmental consultant respond to those kinds of issues.
And I'd like to get a copy of that if possible, so we can bring it to our community, because our community is concerned. Here today, I was supposed to have like 16 other people to be here with me. So, the petition has been signed by a lot of the community, and we want to put that on the record that this is what
Actually,
we have.
you can hand that to Tony Matias, who's sitting right there. She'll make sure it gets into the record properly.
Okay.
Okay? And it articulates your concerns, though, this petition, right, specifically?
Yes. We don't only have one school, we have 6 schools in our immediate area. Now we have another one. According to the records that I read, it was like 800 students, 130 faculty. They bring cars also. They park it on it. We have no place to park. That's another issue that's of concern to us. I was away when you had the last meeting, and I had Banana and Ms. Frazier come out and talk about these issues. So, because we opened it up, we wanted to come out and make sure that we get put on record for our concerns.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other speakers? Please come. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Please state your name for the record and your last name.
Yes, my name is John Ritter. I'm one of the owners of the Home Depot that's located 2 blocks away, and I wanted to express my concerns. I haven't seen the traffic study, but, and I understand the needs of the school. They service a few hundred kids, but the Home Depot has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of customers that come in every day, and I'm concerned that a change in the traffic or some buses blocking the street, Willoughby Avenue especially, could cause problems at Home Depot and make it impossible for customers to come into the building and exit the building. We've already arranged for one of the exits, the major exit on Nostrand Avenue, to be closed during school hours. That's an accommodation to the school next door. So we're particularly sensitive to the neighborhood, but I think that this yeshiva should be sensitive to the needs of the Home Depot customers.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? State your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Willem Jacobitz. I live right across the street of this building. It's 444 Willoughby Avenue at the corner of Nostrand. And I think it's a good idea to have a school over there rather than to have any kind of manufacturing based on the trucks and not on the traffic. With the yeshiva, it's going to be less traffic than it's going to be from any kind of manufacturing or any kind of a business. As a matter of fact, one of my best friends lives on Hayward Street, a few blocks before that block. And in the middle of the block, there's a manufacturing company. Like 2 years ago, the kid came home, and one of the trucks that goes and comes made an accident, and the kid died, a small kid, because of having manufacturing in between residential. All of the block, the Willoughby block is a beautiful block where I live, and I feel it would be much better for the block to have a yeshiva there than to have that's closed, let's say 4 o'clock, 3:30 it's finished, than to have a business that most of the businesses are operating like 24 hours or more. And at the same time, the traffic, since they changed it to the bus route, like one side, the traffic is much less than it used to be, and it's much less than it used to be.
Thank you. Anyone else? So if you could actually have, I'm sorry, questions
About the Title I program.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't get to that yet, sorry about that. So the Title I program, as you saw in the daily schedule, it's a private tutoring session that's held in that classroom. Only about 8 girls remain after school, after the regular school program in that classroom as well. But the traffic report can be amended to reflect that, if the board would like.
So it's just 8?
Well, it's 8 girls in that, and then there is also an after-school program that there are about 40 students who stay until 5:30, so the 8 girls who stay in the Title I program also go home at the same time as this after-school program around 5:30. And and there will be one bus of the 6 buses that were referenced in the traffic report comes at that time. The traffic report can be amended to reflect that there is one of the 6 buses coming at around 5:30, a little after the regular school program.
As long as there's consistency in the program, hours, the traffic, all of that, that would be helpful.
We'll amend the traffic report.
There was a question I wanted to follow up with that. In terms of the buses, where will the buses be located between dropouts and pickups?
Well, they line up on Michigan Avenue. I'm not sure what you mean by where do they park?
Where do they park after they have dropped out?
Eric Levick, I'm familiar with the question because this came up in the first hearing, the first round of hearings, which predated your involvement and Madam Chair's involvement. The buses are provided by a bus company. The bus company removes the buses, they drop off the children, and they take the buses to somewhere far away that don't loiter around the site. We don't know the exact location, but wherever buses for all schools go during the day, for public schools, I don't know where they go. I drive around sometimes and see all the taxis at certain places for lunchtime. I don't know where all the buses go, but they don't stay at the location. They leave the location and they go to wherever.
Can you find out where that special...
Yeah, we can speak to the bus company and find out where their buses go. I assume they go where every other bus in the city goes to.
Yes, where they line up along the service road of the BQE ad infinitum.
Well, I've seen a lot of them there. You're talking about off of Kent Avenue, right? Yeah, I don't think that's for this issue, but I have seen those there on weekends. I see those there, particularly on the Sabbath. You'll see those buses lined up there, but that's not it. It's a different facility unrelated to this. But we'll get you the exact address of where they go.
What we're trying to do is not cause some problem somewhere else that's not factored in here.
Understood.
That would be maybe improper.
Understood, but again, we can't emphasize enough, there's thousands of schools throughout New York City, and there's thousands of school buses, and there must be some system of buses where they go in between drop-offs. We'll get you that information. Okay, but I don't see them lined up on the Upper East Side, so I'd imagine at least they have a plan for it, so we'll find out what our plan is.
Buses there. Okay, we would like to hear the environmental consultant if she can speak to the issues of the hazardous materials on the site.
There was a phase 1 study.
Your name again, please.
Nancy Newman, Sandstone Environmental Associates. There was a phase 1 study done, and the purpose of the phase 1 is to determine whether there's the likelihood of any recognized environmental conditions, and they concluded there was, partly because from the Sanborn maps, they thought that there might be some underground storage tanks, partly because I think as the laundry or whatever before, they had also been doing truck repair and things like that. So they recommended a phase 2, which was additional sampling. We did not do the phase 1 or phase 2, but at the board's request, we summarized what went on. And
So a phase 2 was done, but not by you?
Correct.
Right, okay.
And what they found in phase 2 is they removed all of the tanks. There was no staining or physical evidence of contamination in any of the soil cores. They found elevated concentrations of metals in the soil cores that they thought were representative of the native soil. That was not an issue. They found chlorinated volatile organic compounds of unknown origin in subslab soil gas samples. They may be related to soil on adjacent properties or contaminated groundwater. Concentrations of two compounds, which is PCE and PCE, would require mitigation measures for any new development on the site, which is your subslab infiltration system. Apparently, they've said that a health and safety plan was put together. The building was demolished on the basis of that health and safety plan. So there are no issues with contamination.
So an HS health and safety plan and CHAP,
that's what I meant.
So you don't have to do, if you're doing any excavation, you don't have to do any special disposal or testing?
They already did the special testing. There's no need for special disposal, but it's based on what I read.
So could you add that to the memo, please, that summary of what was done?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
You did not get that?
Oh, we didn't see the new version, so if you could make sure that gets submitted.
Yes, right. Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, great, thank you very much. And then with respect to the buses, we need to incorporate actually the traffic study should already be making observations about Home Depot traffic? I mean, obviously you can't tell who's headed to Home Depot or not, but it obviously should be making an observation about how that kind of traffic is affecting the surrounding streets and how the buses and their appearance and so on affects that traffic. That's obvious to part of the traffic study. And we would like to know where the buses go.
We'll get that information too.
And anything else? Do we need anything else? No. Okay, so we have a list of things to do, including making changes to the plans. Right. Okay. So, can we do that in a month?
We could do that.
If you could then submit by, say, could you do that by April 27th, you think? Or is that too soon?
I think we can do that.
April 27th?
I believe so.
Okay, so then for a hearing on May 17th. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
New cases, item number 10, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, she needs a break. Oh, I'm sorry. 5-minute break.
5-minute break.
Yeah, sorry, 5-minute break. And we'll get some. That is not. So that's what is the security person. Oh, I'm sorry, back on.
Okay, we're back on the record. Let's go see calendar, new cases, item number 10. My mic is off. Item number 10, 36482 BC, 24524 Horace Harding Expressway.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Jeremiah Condreva for the applicant. A representative was at yesterday's review session, and I'd like to respond to some of the comments that were made if it pleases the board. The community board, by the way, approved this project unanimously on December the 7th. I hope the board has a copy of the resolution. If not, I'll certainly... You don't? Okay, I will contact them. Not only did the community board approve it unanimously, but the board president herself voted this out and approved it on January the 7th, and had no comments on it. I apologize if the photographs were unclear or at best murky or movement was shown. I can provide additional photographs, but it is sprinklered. There is a fire control command station there, and what I'd like to do, if it's acceptable to the board, is to provide certification from the architect that that these measures have been, it's fully sprinklered, that they've been installed, that they're in compliance. This dates back a while for this site, and it may have been that, and I think the key for me to try to get the answer to, and I don't know that I can, but I'll try, is does this architect, or can this architect figure out what plan was reviewed by fire department staff at the buildings department when it was originally approved? Because that, I think, would lead to the confirmation the fire department approved it. But it's so old that I think that's the only way to confirm it. But I can... Yes.
What's so old? How old is...
This has been here for a number of years.
Right, but the sprinklers and fire alarm systems have to be checked every once in a while by the fire department.
That's correct, and I believe John will testify that this is up to date to 2017 at this location.
Ah, okay, so we didn't have anything from the fire department stating that they would inspect it, right? So, yeah, so provide...
Certification from the architect?
Sure, but also something from the architect isn't the one who can know whether the fire department approves this, right?
Right, but the
architect has it in his file.
That's correct. I'm not arguing with you, but if he doesn't have it in the file, the only one that can show that this was approved is the Department of Buildings representative, who, when it's submitted to the Buildings Department, it's reviewed by the fire department and approved. And that's the link here. John can address the issue. I'm happy to have him address it now, or...
Yeah, after you finish with your questions.
There was a sign, Commissioner Shonda, there was a sign regarding 2-hour parking. If it's not there, I'll make sure that it gets reinstalled, but it should have
The
been.
question is,
Yeah.
do you even, I mean, if it's not needed or...
I don't believe it is. There was a history here of this. This is a 2005 condition. During the 1995 grant, there was some testimony between the PCE use and a condo renewal association that was in proximity, but that issue hasn't existed, to my knowledge, for quite some time now.
So, can you find out what the status, whether it's needed, what that situation was that led to needing that sign?
Well, I knew it was a condition of the board in 2005, and I was under the impression when we extended the term for this a while ago that the sign was actually there. And I'll check, and because the sign may in fact be there, and if it's not, I'm happy to have it reinstalled.
There's a sign in the parking lot.
Right, that's what it's supposed to be, yeah. So-
Oh, you saw the sign?
Yeah, there's, talk to the valet parker and...
Oh, it's by the valet parking.
Yes,
Yeah.
by the booth, yes.
In fact, a lot of people were parking along the service road and, getting tickets, and it's like, well, why don't they park in the parking lot? Because it's free. And the valet said, I don't know.
Shouldn't be.
There's plenty of space, yes. I was wrong about the signage. I think there was a warning sign, it's on the plans, and it was there.
So the awning sign is shown.
Yes.
Then I think the only other issue, if I may, was that if the plans are inadequately labeled, we're happy to relabel them.
Yeah, you've got some areas that just haven't been labeled. You've got a storage area, and then I assume it's like the aerobics room, but
Yes.
you don't actually say that. And then you've got another big area of equipment, and although you labeled one area with equipment, you haven't told us what this other type of equipment.
Okay, we're happy to relabel it.
Okay, so why don't we hear from the fire department about how they can help us, or let's say, help themselves feel comfortable that the sprinklers and fire alarm are up to date, et cetera, and been able to do a dance?
Just stretching my healing operation. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Anthony Scudero, Fire Department. Unfortunately, because of my absence, I didn't research this early enough, but as of last night, I did some quick research, and this is the status I can give you. The sprinklers are installed, operational, and have been approved and had their required 5-year test in 2012, and they are valid through 2017. So the sprinklers are no problem. There was an old PA permit that has since expired. I presume what's going to happen, there's probably going to be, when this gets approved, there's going to have to be like a restructuring or redrawing of the PA layout, and they're going to have to bring their permit up to date. That'll happen automatically. Our unit, LPPA, which is Licensed Places and Public Assembly, will be doing a site inspection, and if it's minor, they'll probably be issuing the necessary violations to show corrections to have an approved PA floor plan, which reflects the actual conditions. So it's minor, but it just should be said. As far as the interior fire alarm, this is a strip mall. There is an existing alarm system for the entire strip mall. They make reference to a coded system. But according to my records, I don't believe the interior fire alarm system as described on the plans actually exists. It certainly has not been, there's no evidence that the interior fire alarm specific to the PCE space has been filed with the Department of Buildings, and I see no evidence that the fixtures described actually exist. So we're going to do further research, and my site inspection will confirm that I think that interior fire alarm still has to be applied for and installed. And that's where we stand. And I should get forwarded updated information to everybody prior to the next hearing.
Mr. Candreva is shaking his head and thinks that...
Yeah, we already spoke, yeah.
Okay, so, great, so you'll verify between the two of you.
And he had said that the architect might be able to provide this missing document. Like I said, I didn't spend quite enough time researching, so it may in fact exist, and I overlooked it. So we'll get a better answer for you prior to the next hearing.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I have been advised and believe that in fact the fire system, alarm system is there, and it has been installed and exists.
Great. Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so I think we just have a couple of missing things, so I think we can close. Thank you. We're just fixing these things and verifying, right? So for a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter? Vice Chair Hickson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Otley-Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
Okay, so how quickly... We can do that in a couple of weeks?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So if we did May 3rd, how about submission on, trying to make this sooner, but it's not working. A submission on April 27th for a hearing on May 17th.
Thank you.
Decision on May 17th. Decision May 17th.
Item number 11, 22984 BZ, 7528 Queens Boulevard, Queens.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Joe Lankin, for the applicant. Representative attended yesterday's review session, and I'd like to respond. I would have been there, but I was at, my daughter competed in France in the World Championships. And you know what? For a 13-year-old to compete against 17-year-olds, she placed 25th out of 115 women. It was great. She was fantastic, so thank you. And I'm just back, so sorry I missed review session.
Took the red eye to get here.
Just to try to answer some of the questions that were brought up. Commissioner Montanez had pointed out the statement didn't mention that the term was extended. It's there, I can put it to you, but it's the last sentence of the first paragraph of the statement of support that says that the term was extended until 2024. I'm embarrassed, frankly, that if the parking lot is unkempt, it's not acceptable, and I'm embarrassed if that's the case, and I will speak to the client as soon as I leave today's hearing, and I can assure you and the board that parking lot will be immediately cleaned. And it should be maintained in pristine condition. And by the way, the fence was an issue for the board last time, and the board asked us to remove the barbed wire. We did remove the barbed wire. The fence was kind of rusted, and the board asked for us to paint it. We painted the fence. Not only we painted the fence, we painted the building. The building's in very good repair, but if the fence is in disrepair, it should be repaired. And so I agree with the board, and again, I'm embarrassed that I didn't go to the site to see it. I was surprised by the testimony, the comments at review session, but I will follow up immediately on that issue, and it'll be addressed. The site analysis form, one of the members of the board, and I'm sorry, I didn't take notes here of who it was, but I apologize for that. One of the members of the board said, we need a site analysis form. The site analysis form that the board has really lends itself to the C zones, because this is an M zone. The site analysis itself is on zoning sheet Z03. That's the way we did it last time on the proof sheet, and it's on the proposed plans this time. I think we have a similar issue. I think we have to come up with, but it's my understanding that this site is fully sprinklered, it has the pull boxes, it has the alarm system, it's a standalone building, and that it's up for its 5-year reevaluation, but other than that, it's in good state. And I believe that addresses all of the Commission's comments. The committee board did approve this on December 8th.
Okay, let's hear what fire department said.
Good afternoon again, Anthony Scudetto, Fire Department. The actual condition is almost identical. Sprinkler system is installed, operational, has been for many, many, many years. They are overdue for their 5-year static pressure test. That's something that will be corrected. I'll notify our sprinkler units, start the ball rolling to schedule inspections, although how that happens is actually a subcontractor, a contractor does the actual testing that's witnessed by the fire department. We'll start the ball on that, but there's no question that it is there and functioning. There is an existing PA permit, was issued in 2013, and we'll get our public assembly unit to do an inspection to bring everything up to date there, so that looks good. Occupancy on this estate's 300 people, so We're going to make sure we get out there quickly. I have the same problem with the interior fire alarm as described on the plans. I have no record that what we have described on the plans actually exists. It doesn't look like there was a specific application made. We will confirm the condition and if necessary, write the appropriate order of correction. And that's it. But we have no objection really to moving forward with the project.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you'll verify again about the fire alarm?
Yes, Madam Chair. And again, I've been advised that it's there operating with function.
Okay, so, are there any speakers on this? So, you need to clean up the site?
Yes.
Clean the fence?
Yes.
Before we move on?
I understand.
What it is it's been painted, but it's like, instead of replacing it, which was the conversation we had last time around, it was kind of probably bent straight, and now over time, it's now buckled around the base.
Okay.
So it should be replaced?
Probably should be replaced, and so nobody's been really looking there, so all the garbage has collected along that base of the fence all the way around.
Thank you for the comment. May I ask a clarifying question? And I don't know how the fence, if it lends itself to this, but I assume if, it's an assumption, and so if the fence lends itself to sections being replaced, as opposed to the entire perimeter fence, is that an acceptable position to the board, or am I in the position of advising my client that the board is requesting the entire fence be replaced? Because if there are sections that are in repair, then I'd like to not have to replace those sections, but...
Right, if as a result of replacing all of the sections that are in disrepair, you
Yes.
can have a uniform-looking fence that's
Yes.
in good condition,
Yes.
then I'm inclined to support that. But that's we had this conversation before, and the repairs did not lead to an improvement in the overall condition. Or maybe it was a brief period of time where it looked nice, and then because it was not replaced, it just fell into disrepair.
I understand, we'll take care of it.
Or you may find that you have so many sections to replace that...
Yeah, that's right, just redo it.
Sometimes it's
That's it,
cheaper,
right.
actually.
Right.
Just materials or additional costs.
Right, because we may not need to change the support beams, just
No,
right.
right,
So,
just the
so thank you.
Right, okay. And then you'll find out about the fire alarm system, and you'll get all that other stuff. Okay. The drawings already show what we were asked. Okay, good. So then we can close this also? Okay. So for motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
But this one might take a little longer because it's fence work. Maybe at the beginning of June, so for a hearing?
Thank you. May I ask, and I understand that the answer is no, but, no, I mean, it's fair. Would it be possible to consider a grant with the installation of a fence as a condition? I need to ask, and if it's not, and I understand.
I'd say, in this case, you already have an operating facility here, right? And we haven't been able to get the site maintained the way it was supposed to be, and the fire alarm and all.
I understand, and thank you for your consideration.
It never hurts to ask. Okay, so what we'll do is just put decision on for, say, June 2nd, does that
Yes.
work? And then sort of an official submission date on May 11th. But if in terms of the fence repair, that takes a little longer for you to submit photos, then just submit those photos, but get the fire alarm system information in.
I will, thank you.
Okay?
Yes, and have a nice day, thank you.
Thank you. Get some sleep. Okay. You go? Okay. Yeah.
Appeals calendar, decision items. Item number 12, 6713A, 945 Zerega area of the Bronx.
Oh, we have to, we have to reopen this, I'm sorry. So, a motion to reopen?
Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson? Aye. Commissioner Montanez? Aye. Commissioner Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, Commissioners. I monitored the executive session yesterday, and I understand the concerns of the board, and I would like to address them today. I happen to
Feel respectfully that they aren't major issues and they can be resolved rather quickly, and not require full submission, but that will be for you to decide, obviously. I gathered from the executive session there are two main issues. They can be grounded down to two main issues. One are the permits from the 1980s, which confuse the location positioning of the signs on the roof, and the second issue, which Madam Chair identified as a larger issue, was the status of the sign as an accessory sign based on the 1988 lease and other applications. I'd like to first deal with the small, quote-unquote, smaller issue, and then we'll move to what the board perceives as a larger issue. In terms of the 86 permit application, which shows the signs on which applies for signs that show locations or angles that are different from where are currently positioned, it is our feeling that this permit application as evidence of the sign's positions are, if not flawed, or if not nullity flawed. We have no evidence that the signs were ever in these positions or ever took these positions. This is an application filled with incorrect information in general, and for the board to try to glean what it perceives as a kernel which may be correct from otherwise completely incorrect applications and false applications, I think is moving into the area of speculation in terms of, well, we say that this is wrong, but this part we're going to credit.
I think you misunderstood the board's reading of those materials. So we're not saying that the sign should have been over in the corner the way it's shown in those drawings. We're saying that the application tells us a lot of things about what was going on in the site. What we don't know, because you never supply us with any information, is whether that sign that's in its current position on an angle has always been in that position.
Right.
So the only way that we can read it is there was an application made in 1987 to put the sign right at the corner of the building. That application was approved, and then it wasn't installed there, it was installed in another place. That's the only way we can surmise, because the details of the sign look the same. It's a 20 by 60 structure with an L that's 24 by 24, and so that looks awfully similar to the one that's in question.
With all due respect, I disagree with that interpretation.
Okay,
and the reason I do is because there are a number of reasons. First of all, the 1986 application implies that the signs will be built. We know exactly that the signs pre-existed. We have receipts from 85. We have receipts from Marlboro in 1987. And this supposed application was not approved until 1990. We have pictures that we dated in 1988.
No. This application was approved earlier in 88, but it wasn't signed off until 1990. But can you just give us some photographic proof that the sign existed?
I will try as hard as I can. As I said, it's not, I would love to make the board feel as comfortable as possible with their decision and improving the sign. We've tried to get photographs, and I will once again trawl aerial surveys and that type of information. However, as I think I've mentioned before, this wasn't exactly the most photogenic area of New York City in the early to mid-'80s. So the availability of these photographs is a little bit difficult, but we will try.
It's my understanding that Bruckner Interchange was constructed in the 1960s, and it was a very complicated interchange with these three highways combining, and a lot of people were very interested in it, and all you need are some aerial photos from like the late 70s, just to even show the structure on the roof, which we don't have that.
Right. I will attempt to get whatever I can. I'll try in the form of photographs and any other information.
I would think that something like that is really available.
We try. But we'll try again.
For our record, if you could submit a list of the companies with whom you attempted to get this information, there are 5 or 6 of them.
Yes.
If you can just let us know, you contact them.
Like they're satellite companies, they're...
Well, not in the early 80s.
The historical address, which is plain as fine, over 17 pictures, and they keep a great index, and they're very useful for this purpose. And there are 4 or 5 different uses.
Okay. And then I'll move on to the second issue, which is the accessory signage, which the board identifies as a larger issue with the lease. I did not perceive this as an issue, and I understand that the board might, because they may not be...
The lease for space or the lease for the signage?
The lease for space as an accessory lease. I think that the DOB, in the case that I reviewed, has regularly disregarded sham leases, quote-unquote sham leases, leases which are put into place simply as the purpose of accessorizing and otherwise advertising sign. And I think I have cases on this.
When did they disregard the sham leases? Because according to city planning, as late as 2000, which is when the city planning report I was reading from was dated, that was a practice.
Right. There's no doubt that it's a practice. In fact, it's mentioned in the library of the tobacco industry database, which I quoted a link in this case. There's actually a memo on it saying if you want to get advertising up in New York, the way to do it is to get a space lease and then put up a sign on the roof. So there's no doubt that it was a regular practice. I'm speaking to is the way the DOB enforces now and how it reviews these cases and how it reviews these leases now. I think that's the most logical way to look at this. And from I've seen case and case again, the DOB has disregarded these sham leases. They've said that they've viewed it as, and I think there's an important implication here, which is the presence of an outdoor advertising company points to these leases being sham leases. But what I'm saying is that in a typical accessory sign situation, it's a matter of numerics. In an accessory sign situation, the number is 2, as in there are 2 parties. There is the landlord and there is the tenant. And the tenant, in a bona fide accessory situation, the tenant is leasing space, and part of the agreement, or maybe even separate agreement, will have in there the signage that goes with it. In a sham lease situation, the number is 3. You have a party that shouldn't be in a bona fide shouldn't exist in a bona fide accessory sign case, which is the outdoor advertising company. And we've seen time and time again where there is an outdoor advertising company involved, as we have here. The DOB has not credited those leases as bona fide accessory sign spaces, but has recognized them as advertising signs.
Wait a minute, but why is it relevant what DOB does today? It's back in 87, 88.
Well, I'm saying
That's what really is relevant, and for me, coupled with this permit for legalizing the sign to reflect that it's, an advertising business, something signed, along with a lease to a company that really has no business being in that building.
Right.
Says to me that somewhere down the road, either the building department or somebody on their end said, this may not be the kind of sign that we can have here, but this is how we do it. We get Philip Morris to lease some space. We call it then, an accessory sign to Philip Morris's business. I have to say, I'm dating myself, but I kind of remember this.
Right. No, I'm not.
In a very practical way. So, when I saw this, I, immediately remembered, sort of what the deal was back then. So, I don't know, maybe you can...
Yeah, let me clarify that.
How this did not happen.
No, that was the deal back then, and I think that what's confusing the board is the issue of perspective, and it confused me too when I first went into this area of the law, which is I see signs that should fall under 79 amnesty or other legalities, and I repeatedly see them applying for accessory permits when they could have applied for an advertising permit and gotten a full advertising permit, and now that all these signs are under review since the laws were promulgated post-2000 and after 2008, save themselves a lot of trouble had they done the right thing and applied applied for an advertising permit instead of doing, but we see time and time again, they're applying for accessory permits. And when I ask them why, and I ask clients, why are you doing this? Why didn't you just apply for what you would have gotten, which was an advertising permit, you were entitled to it.
But they wouldn't have used the term legalizing. And I've seen a lot of these. And this struck me as odd because they did say legalization. I know exactly what you're saying, but they don't use the term, we're going to legalize this sign. So I'm at a quandary.
The permit you're talking about, I believe is a 1990 permit?
The 1990 permit started, I guess, 1989, but I guess it was pulled 1990 and approved in 1990.
Right. And I can't speak...
And the lease was an 88 lease, so it's somewhat contemporaneous.
Right. I can't speak to whether they got in trouble from a planning examiner or didn't want to. As I was getting to before you interjected, the issue here is if you walk into, they explain it to me, and it's a simple matter. If you're going to go into the DOB, even in the 1980s, and say, I want to apply for an advertising sign, I'm entitled to it, here's my evidence, even if you were right and you have the evidence, it's still a process, because the word advertising sets off a larger round of examination in terms of whether you're entitled to one of the amnesties, the historic basis. If you walk into the DOB and say, I have an accessory sign permit, you get a rubber stamp. And in the 80s, you get a rubber stamp, and what happens is that, and from their perspective, you have to realize that since 1940, there have been rules against advertising on highways, which DOB have not enforced. So if you're saying you can spend a lot of money and spend a lot of effort trying to get an advertising permit, or you can spend almost no effort trying to get an accessory permit.
But you got official documents, you made official submissions to an agency that gave you permits to erect business sign.
Right.
Which is a change of use from an advertising sign. So I don't see how you can get around it by just saying, well, it was easier.
Yeah, I mean, easier means you abandon your use.
Exactly, you abandon your use, and frankly, it would be speculation at this point to go back in time and say that that was a fraudulent application to Department of Buildings. You made an application to Department of Buildings. Department of Buildings thought it was genuine and an actual legal application. They granted you an accessory business sign. Now, we're up 35 years from now, and I can't understand how, or 25 years from now, and I can't understand how you would even, go about proving that that was actually fraudulent at that time.
I understand the board's discomfort. I will say that if that is the way that the board feels in terms of accessory permits and actually changing a use, if that's the law that expects the DOB to enforce, which it has not been enforcing, you're going to have about 50 or more sign-up, or you should have, if the DOB does its job in terms of revocations, because they've repeatedly, signs that have received accessory permits haven't approved for registration, and they have not been ruled as a change in use.
Well, we actually had a couple of appeals that came before us with the same argument before that, okay, we applied, we said that there was a company in this building, and so we got an accessory business sign, and so now we're telling you back then that was fraudulent. It really was an advertising sign, and we put one over on DOB. And I don't believe that
I believe I'm aware of the case that you're referring to. I had some involvement with that. I believe you're referring to the case with 330 Brooklyn Boulevard.
This bus service.
Right, New York Bus Service, correct. I had some involvement with that case, and while it's my personal belief that I do not believe the board correctly decided that case, personally, I do think there is an important distinction between that case and this case, and that is what I referred to before as 2 and 3. The New York Bus Service case had no outdoor advertising company involved at the site at the time that New York Bus Service entered into its lease. New York Bus Service entered its lease with the landlord. There were two parties. There was the prospective tenant and the landlord.
Councilor, that just supports the contention that this was fraudulent.
Regarded as another.
Well, so one of the concerns is that this sort of attempt to circumvent the regulations initiated your continuity of use because you went from being an advertising sign buying yourself a business sign, an accessory sign. And you haven't really responded to that. There's an issue of the actual appreciation of continuity. There's also an unclean hands issue. To some extent, the economist is posting about some time. It's really...
Well, I would argue that in this case, we have an issue in terms of, a further issue in terms of, I would say, I hate to use these terms, but equal protection, because we've been seeing time and time again where applicants that have applied for accessory permits, and it's not uncommon, as I've said again, have received registration, and these permits have been submitted to the DOB and have been ignored. So the fact that the board is creating, I wouldn't say creating, but the board is recognizing this as a vitiation now, I think enters into a problem where you have unequal enforcement, where you can say, for these set of cases, which the DOB has said are fine and kosher and good, despite having accessory permits, have taken out accessory permits, and they didn't vitiate the use, and now suddenly I wouldn't say the rules are changing, but the rules are different.
No, but that's only if the board found in different directions with the same facts. But we're being asked very specifically by the court to look at the subject of continuity, right?
Correct.
And so we were looking at continuity based on the pile of data that you had provided us, and it wasn't until, and there was always that confusion. What in the world was that business sign that's mentioned on the lease? Nobody was able to actually adequately explain what that was about. For a while, we thought they were there simultaneously. Then once we saw the permit applications, we saw that it was physically impossible for both sets of signs to be on the roof simultaneously, because the roof wasn't big enough to hold both sets of signs. So, especially because we also had a submission that talked about the structure of the roof and the ideal location of where the sign would be on the roof and so on, and taking all of those things into consideration, how in the world could you also put that advertising, that business sign on the roof? So this is the first time where I think Commissioner Martinez said yesterday, all the pieces fit together. And the pieces fit together in a way to describe the lack of continuity of the advertising sign clearly. And to say that, we filed the wrong way and we did it because that was easier, that hasn't worked on any arguments that have to do with continuity of use, never mind about signs, about any kind of continuity of use.
We're not arguing that these permits are of any use. I think that's a distinction here. We're not arguing that these permits are of use or are valuable for some reason or should be credited for some reason. We're arguing the opposite. And to your other...
Sorry, what's the opposite? Sorry.
I mean, we're arguing that the permits themselves are nullable. I mean, that they should not be, because they include erroneous and incorrect information.
What's erroneous? There was a space that was rented that was 1,585 square feet that at the time was accepted, especially in the late 80s, was accepted as occupancy enough. And it wasn't until kind of later in the story where city planning and DOB started to realize that, they're occupying 1% of the space or even less and so on, and qualifying for gigantic product-oriented business sign. It doesn't even say Joe's Pizza above Joe's Pizza. It's a product sold by Joe's Pizza. Not pizza. So I don't understand the nullity argument at all. And otherwise, yes, it would be fraud. So you want to argue that you committed fraud before the agency? That's pretty strange.
Well, we do not, I'm not the party that represents the permit. Again, as I'm saying, this is, the facts of these signs are never clean. And that's because there was, and if you're looking for the pure, really white sign, advertising sign, you're not going to find it, unfortunately. If I'm disabusing you of the notion, I'm sorry. But it just doesn't exist. Unfortunately, because based on the history of enforcement in New York City and the way that these laws unfolded in general, it just doesn't, it's not out there. And unfortunately, these were a fact of, this is a fact of life. It's a fact of life that the agency, as I'm sure until 2 minutes from now, has acknowledged. size.
Try to define for me in one sentence what your legal argument is based on what you said. Like, there's no really white signs and all that sort of stuff. What's your legal argument?
My legal argument is that the board and the department and the board are controlled by not by their past decisions from 20 years ago, but their decisions within the past few years on how they view the status of these signs, these applications, and these leases. And you can't change it suddenly for one case. So if you've had over and over again that the DOB has ignored accessory permits that came post-1979 to continue the sign, you can't suddenly say that that is a vitiation act, that that's an act.
Okay, that's the DOB. What about the board?
I think the board, these are two agencies that, as much as the board acts as a check independent from the DOB, they do act in concert in terms of saying out the city policy. It's a misstatement to say that the board acts in a vacuum and completely ignore what the DOB is doing. And because these cases won't even reach the board, the DOB doesn't, per the DOB if they're not enforcing it in a certain way. So I think they both have to act in concert in terms of if the board wants to constrain the DOB and say that they should reopen all these cases and present them to the board, that would be one thing. But to say for one case, we're going to say that we're going to rule differently than what the DOB has done time and time again, I think that is a problem.
So, Council, the board's not going to concede any of the points that you just made, obviously. If you'd like to brief the board on issues, on instances where there has been a filing as an accessory sign, and then that the board has held that the board or DOB will please distinguish, where either agency has sort of given countenance to that accessory filing or business sign in establishing continuity for the purposes of determining a lawful non-conforming sign in the interest of the city.
I'd be happy to.
But specifically, that the board has made such decisions, and I think you could even reach further, because there may not be enough sign cases, you could reach further into other cases where the board considered the continuity of use, where the use was changed somewhere during its history into a use that arguably, I don't know what.
I think, Madam Chair, I think that the sign cases themselves, though, probably offer a better guideline because, as I mentioned, the tortured history with enforcement sort of created these situations where you're filing these or doing these sham situations which don't fit. Now, post-haste, we're trying to fit into a regulatory scheme on what we will and will not accept, and that's what we have to go under.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, any speakers on this? Oh, yes, DOB gets to speak if it wants.
Kurt Steinhaus for the New York City Department of Buildings will be responding in writing.
Thank you very much. Okay. So you have the majority of the heavy lifting to do. How much time do you need to heavily lift?
My client wants me to push this as soon as possible, but I think that, generally speaking, the board has asked me to do several things which are time-consuming, especially given my work situation currently. So,
this includes finding photographs. That's pretty critical.
Right.
In often cases, the overhead companies, they often ask for a month of lead time just to do that.
Right.
You really give yourself enough time to...
Our University of Philadelphia Media, we have tried going back with photos from 40 years ago. It's not easy. And we tried when we did the first case, we tried and we couldn't find any. So we're still trying because there's always popping up some pictures on New York Library or somewhere else, but I don't doubt.
Right, but let's just say, I'm not sure that it would persuade us anymore, but without the photographs, that the sign existed in this location, I don't think there's much further to go. Because no matter how you interpret the zoning regulations, you're not allowed to relocate the sign.
Right, and I will I agree with the board that 5283 of the zoning resolution does not allow replacements or reposition. I will include in my brief several instances of enforcement.
I don't know if it's helpful or not, but in that general area, you have a couple of interesting historical occurrences that may be helpful. One is the Whitestone Drive-In across the highway was one of the last drive-ins in New York City, so there may be some photographic evidence that you could draw from that. And also right behind where the Home Depot now is was the first indoor racket club, I believe, in New York, in the Bronx. And some photographs of that might take the billboard and,
We also tried to interview people who used to work in the area as well, and give us affidavits.
No, also want to try to, because I'm interested in, the way things move. There are a lot of blogs on transportation, and I personally found that some interesting photographs of the interchange on those blogs. Affidavits won't help us. We're trying to establish the location of the sign. That's just one aspect. We're still having a lot of trouble with this sham.
So what about sign affidavits? From the sign companies, people who worked at that time who actually built it.
No, but they can't speak to the actual location. You need to see that it's...
If the sign company built the company,
Yeah, I know.
if they built it, they would
remember
know.
whether it was at 80 degrees off the corner. You're not going to remember back 30-something years to 80 degrees off the corner.
I brought this to this hearing, Mike, and put it in the submission, which is just one of the several cases I found of the sham leases where the DOB has approved registration.
Okay, that's the DOB again. The board's decisions are much more interesting to me than DOB practice.
It's also not just registration, but the permit application, the establishment of continuity of use, so specifically in that context.
Right.
Right, okay. I think we acknowledge that Marlboro is there and Philip Morris owns Marlboro, and the question is the question now is how you characterize their usage.
What do you mean?
Whether they are considered advertising or accessory. Right, we're not arguing that, for the evidence that we have, I'll look for others, but I believe that they basically had that sign from 86 to 90.
But again, the issue before the board is the continuity of use, and specifically whether registering as an accessory sign vitiating the continuity of use.
Right,
I understand why this might be suggestive, but we want to really hone in on that very specifically. Does the sort of deliberate filing is one thing, vitiate the use, the continuity of member use as it's being used. And so I think you're trying to distinguish between sort of the legal use and the actual use that the advertising sign was there the entire time. The board needs to hear from you as to sort of how this has been treated in the past.
I agree. I don't think that's an issue. I'll look for board cases, and obviously I'll include DOB cases, but obviously there's always preference.
So again, we're up to, and did I ask already if there was speaker? Yes, okay. Yeah, timing, how much out? Mr. Monks?
I think 2 months.
Okay. So, you want to be able to submit in 2 months?
Submit 2 months, I'm sorry.
Okay, so then how about a submission on May 25th? Is that too soon? You could submit June 1st. We could put you on a hearing for June 21. Does DOB want to submit simultaneously, or do you want to submit responsively? Responsively. So then, okay, so this moves everything out, of course. So if you submit on May 25th, then DOB, is 2 weeks enough?
June 1st.
Sorry, June 1st, 2 weeks. For DOB would be June 15th. You want to respond to DOB 1 week, so that's June 2nd. For a hearing, July 12th.
It's June 1st.
June 1st, June 15th, June 22nd, July 12th for the hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
How's everyone feeling? Yeah.
Item number, continued hearings, item number 13, 234-14A, 738 East 6th Street, Manhattan.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Ashley Hanlon for the applicant. Since the last hearing, we had a licensed plumber inspect the building. He's been a licensed plumber for nearly 30 years in New York City, and we submitted his report of his findings. In order for the building to be converted from 20 units to 11 units, as the 1989 CO indicates, the kitchens would have had to been removed and the gas lines capped, as we've said. The plumber, Mr. Levetro, found no evidence of this. Specifically, he wrote that he would have been able to tell that the gas lines would have to be capped at the meters and in the kitchens, and he saw no tampering of gas lines being capped in the past or present that we know that they're used now.
I didn't find that a very persuasive letter. It sounded, I read it more like he sees 20 units, he sees 20 gas meters and he sees 20 buzzers, therefore 20 in 1985. He didn't, for instance, submit photographs or explain what the process would have been to cap, and I know that these were combination units that used to be known as Dwyer units for the kitchen, so they had a very simple connection, so you wouldn't necessarily see any signs of capping and an uncapping and so on. So I actually think, because the forensic study hasn't been very, let's say, rigorous, I would have done it differently if it were me, that we really should be relying on the legal argument that we talked about, which is going to the law and seeing what the law is about discontinuation of a stabilized unit with or without the HCR approval, and what the law is with respect to DOB's authority to grant an alteration type 1 application to discontinue those units. I mean, they're two separate agencies, one state, right? So superior in terms of that, right? In conflict with each other, and DOB does not regulated units. You can't know whether you're abandoning the unit, nothing. But if the state says you have no right to, then DOB would have had no right to. But I don't know what the law is, and that's a case for you to make.
Right. So we are looking at that now. I apologize if you have mentioned that at past hearings and we didn't provide that. But we are looking into the event regulations law and how the DHCR, their jurisdiction and their override of the city agencies. What I do know is that, what I have heard is that when we file these applications, the application to renovate work, they inform DOB in writing that it's DHCR regulated. Whether they and the two agencies work together, it doesn't seem that to be the case, and also whether building owners are honest, that doesn't seem to be the case, especially here. Okay, so when you file the application to do work to a rent-stabilized unit or rent-stabilized building, they would have to inform DHCR and DOB that it is in fact rent-stabilized.
So these days, you have to file non-harassment letters. Those days, you didn't have to file anything, hence the reason why today you...
Isn't there non-harassment for SROs? I don't know if you need to do that for rent-stabilized units. I can look this up. I don't want to say whether what I know or not.
Anyway, so I think that's your only, for me, that's the only way that you can make this case. Otherwise, so far the forensic evidence has been stronger as presented by the tenants than it has been presented by...
I mean, the tenants really, in our opinion, should not be opposing this application. We want...
But the tenant showed us a photograph of a wall, a whole wall, right?
We have showed you that too, when we understand that a hole in the wall was made.
Right.
But it's not much work. It's not a partition that put together two units to be one unit.
That's what was proposed on the drawings. The only work that needed to be done to make these one unit was creating an opening and removing a packaged kitchen unit, the Dwyer unit, which is practically no work at all, right? But the fact is, the scar tissue that wasn't covered up very well shows that the opening in the wall was made. So it sort of goes to follow that either the kitchen wasn't removed or it was removed, who knows? But still, the opening in the wall was made.
But that shouldn't, and there's no evidence of the inspection. I mean...
Yeah, there is an evidence.
But there's just a plumbing inspection.
The plumbing inspection, which is supposed to be looking at the drawings and saying, oh, looks like the drawings signed off. There was a plumbing inspection, and that's what the ODE gave us.
Right, well, I still don't find that their docket for it. They even said in their last submission that the inspections have to be satisfactory completion of all inspections. And I think that the work wasn't ordinary plumbing work, according to the definitions of what is ordinary plumbing. So I think a plumber should have been the inspector, not the architect.
How did you decide what's ordinary plumbing work?
In our last submission, we did answer DOB's submission of what they tried to explain what was ordinary plumbing work and what was not. And according to the code, the terms ordinary repairs and minor alterations are defined, and that this work would not be an ordinary repair and minor alterations as in 27-126 excludes minor alterations and minor repairs of cutting away of any wall or alterations of their rearrangement, relocation, repairs, replacement, removal, or any portion of any gas distribution system.
This isn't a removal of a gas distribution system.
I think it's
turn off the gas, put a little cap on the line, and you're done.
I don't know. Based on what our plumber confidently concluded, he inspected the building and it was without a question.
No, he didn't answer the question of whether that was ordinary repairs.
I can have him go back and see how he would file that application in terms of, I would hope that I can't just go in and unscrew a gas line.
No, you need a special tool.
Okay, well, I mean, if it's that easy, I find that shocking, but...
The devil is actually getting it undone.
Yes, right. We need a special, right. And turning off the gas and being allowed to turn the gas back on. Right, so the pressure notifying you.
Gas is now...
All right. No, but so, I mean, I don't know how many more hints to give you. The solution to your problem is in your legal argument, not in your forensics argument. I think we're...
But when it comes to what the prior owner did, if the prior owner did not notify DHCR and did not notify DOB, that brings up a hardship in proving the legal argument, even if DOB couldn't go over what DHCR did.
It doesn't. There's a law that says who's superior to who, under what law, under what rights can you discontinue a stabilized unit. Does DOB have the authority? Maybe there's case law on this. I mean, I don't know. I didn't research it, but you need to do your homework.
Since yesterday's review session, we're in the process of getting it
So
together.
why don't we stick with that? Okay. Thank you. DOB?
Benjamin Hillengass on behalf of the Department of Buildings. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. As the board has pointed out just now, in fact, and as DOB has discussed in previous submissions, the only work that needed to happen in accordance with Alteration 437 of 1989 was the capping of lines and installation of partitions, which is obviously very minor work.
At yesterday's review session, the board asked whether the plumbing sign-off requires a licensed plumber's signature rather than an architect's signature. We have defined this previously as ordinary plumbing work. Even if you were to assume arguendo, though, that this is not ordinary plumbing work, according to Administrative Code Section 26-217, which dealt with inspections and building work, the commissioner, I'm quoting, may accept inspection and test reports submitted by architects and engineers registered or licensed under the education law or by other persons or services when he or she is satisfied as to their qualifications and reliability. So my understanding in this instance is that architects can perform a range of gas tests and inspections provided that they have a certain amount of gas experience. The board also pointed out that because this work was not performed under a no-work application, a permit was necessary, and although they didn't mention it today, this is something that the appellant made note of in the previous submission, and which the board devoted some time to yesterday's review session. In fact, as Exhibit G to the department's original submission, we included a copy of the job folder, which includes that permit. I can give you copies of that. And this, in fact, this material was also included in Exhibit H to appellant's original submission to the board. So this is something, a permit that had.
So this is the permit for the alteration to work. Okay. To perform
So the appellant's latest submission includes a letter from plumber John Levetro, in which Mr. Levetro argues that the reduction from 20 to 11 units was never performed. That claim is apparently based on Mr. Levetro's visual inspection of the intercom and gas meters. It's my understanding that while more recent additions to the meters might create visible differences, this work would be essentially undetectable if it was performed within several years of 1989. A similar material would have been used in that work. In fact, Mr. Levetro's letter doesn't seem to lend any additional support or credence to the earlier letter from Joram Finkelstein, the owner's architect, which was submitted earlier. Neither Mr. Levetro nor Mr. Finkelstein claim any first-hand knowledge of the building's configuration in or about 1989, nor do Mr. Levetro or Mr. Finkelstein offer any basis for the conclusions that this work was not performed, other than the fact that the building, as currently arranged, does not appear to conform with the 89 CO, which is a fact that, as we've mentioned, no one, especially the OB, contests. So, regarding the HCR's denial to remove the subject...
Wait, could you slow down a second? I know you're on a roll, but... the permit, could you explain, like, this is a general permit? Who is this issued to? It's actually really hard to see.
Yeah, I apologize. This is copied from microfiche.
Okay, do you know who it's issued to?
I believe it's issued to the architect who would have done the work, but I can confirm that.
So that's Howard Buck?
Howard Buck is the owner. I think the architect in this case was Peter Budieri, who also signed that plumbing sign-off, which we've submitted.
How can you tell what it's issued? How can you tell what it's issued to?
Honestly, I don't know, but I can certainly...
It says the person designated for this supervision is as follows. Howard Buck?
Howard Buck.
The owner took out the permit. So the owner took out the permit, which I guess was a strange thing for people to do, but that's those days. Okay, and they had insurance, so that's all you had to do, was have insurance, right? Okay, so the owner took out the permit. So then, when it was, is there any way to know whether the plumbing work that was needed for this to basically tap a water and a gas line was minor work versus ordinary work versus anything? Isn't there a way to just know this? Why is this so...
Part of the problem with this is that while there are certainly personnel at DOB who did work there in 1989, as far as I can find, very few of them have first-hand knowledge with what was considered ordinary plumbing work at the time, but I can continue to look into that, certainly.
Okay, I mean, like today, what's ordinary plumbing work?
Well, it's defined, at least in...
I know what it says in the statute. What if you go to a plumber and you tell him that you're gonna do this thing, you're gonna cap 2 lines in each apartment, 1 water, 1 gas, and you're gonna shut off the gas meter, however you do that. And in those days, I know they didn't necessarily take the meters away. That was Con Ed's job, actually. Con Ed would come in later and take the meter away, right? So if you were just telling the current DOB that you're doing that, what would DOB say? What would the plumbing division say that is?
I believe that they would say that's ordinary work, but I can certainly...
Yeah, so please find out, because it seems like plumbing is kind of plumbing.
But at any rate, as I mentioned, though, even if you assume, arguendo, that this was not just ordinary plumbing work, the architect would have been authorized, because this is essentially his permit, his reputation at least, to do that work.
Which work?
To sign the plumbing, to authorize the plumbing sign-off.
So is this a plumber or an engineer?
Peter Budieri, who signed the plumbing sign-off, which is not the permit.
He was an architect.
He is an architect. Was, I do not know.
Architect could sign off on plumbing. Okay.
In 1989, if somebody came and requested a change in the C of O to reduce the number of units, nobody at DOB would question whether they were rent stabilized?
I mean, the way it would work now certainly is on the application under item 26, there's a question regarding whether any of the tenants are rent stabilized, which is the checkbox, and then whether the owner has notified DHCR of that. And the onus is really on the owner or applicant to conform with that. If they check yes to both boxes, the Department of Buildings
Just assumes that that's correct. But what about at the time when...
In 1989, I believe it would have worked the same way.
Can you find out whether that was practice? But let's just say, for argument's sake, today, since that's a practice today, you have an applicant who comes, they lie to you, no apartments are stabilized, or yes, they were stabilized, but we contacted DHCR and they're good with this. Whichever way they go, they're lying, right? And DOB then issues the permit, and DOB issues ultimately a C of O. Because they were lied to. I mean, what would you have done if the answer to the box was, yes, I have stabilized units, yes, I've contacted DHCR, but I want to reduce the unit count from 20 to 11.
I mean, I imagine that would be, and again, I'll look into this, considered a material misrepresentation that could lead to rescission of that permit.
Okay, that's fair, okay. And so, and if you admitted that it was stabilized, and you admitted that you went to DHCR, but then you said, but I'm still good, that's still the misrepresentation because DHCR was not have said yes, right? Okay, so that helps. Even DOB is willing to believe that would be a really bad thing.
Well, I'll admit it's a really bad thing. I don't want to speculate too much as to what...
We don't know what happened.
Official position.
Yes.
I will look into it. Anyway, so regarding DHCR's denials, that segues nicely into this, to remove the subject building from rent regulation, appellant seems to argue that those denials amount to a conclusion that the reduction in the number of units never occurred. However, a close reading of those denials from 1999 to 2000 suggests that while DHCR concluded that the building was not substantially rehabilitated, DHCR took no position on whether the owner had ever actually reduced the number of units.
That's correct. But they had inspections as early as 1993, that there was 20 units. I thought it was 93 was the first one.
Maybe. There's definitely something from 97.
Yeah, they did like 3 or 4 of them.
There was at least, I think there's a complaint from 93, but I don't know if there was an inspection prior to 97. So finally, just to wrap up, I implore the board to recognize that under Charter Section 645E3, there is a strong presumption that certificates of occupancy are validly issued. In 1989, a registered architect on this job signed documents to change the C of O. DOB signed off on those documents, and that should be honored. The appellant has cited only one DSA case in which the board has granted a CO application over the department's denial. In that 2003 case, the appellant challenged the issuance of a 1999 CO when the application filed as an alteration application resulted in an NV, a new building certificate of occupancy. Neither the job application nor the microfiche files related to that application were available for inspection in that case. So there were significant substantive and procedural discrepancies according to the board that are not present here. So these cases are quite distinguishable. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. But you're going to submit all that in writing?
Yes.
Right, okay, terrific. And find out the answers to those questions, right? Okay, great. Okay. Are there any speakers on this? Yes, please. After the speakers. So then you'll have more to say.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Saunders, and I'm the 738 East 6th Street tenant chairperson. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to address a couple of things here today. Essentially that the reason we're even here today is from a tenant's complaint. The reason that any of this has essentially been put into motion is because a former tenant in 1B complained to the Attorney General about a lack of points of egress from her apartment, as well as the very concerns we see now. Occupancy in the building that's contrary to the C of O. And it took from that complaint, the Attorney General sending the DOB to inspect our building on, I believe, April 29th of 2013, which resulted in the violations that we see. I guess essentially I just wanted to mention the vigilance of the tenants and that this essentially affects all of our lives. These are our homes, and we'd like to make sure whatever decisions are made here, that the tenancies that we so care for are protected. This definitely, I've lived in the building now, this will be my 11th year. I care about the building and the tenants. I did also want to mention a few things about the DHCR that you have raised. As you've seen from the submissions I offered into evidence from 2CD and 3AB, the DHCR does not show separate 20 units being registered with the building as it stands. Back in 2013, I went to their offices, I think, on Beaver Street and requested my actual registration. At that point, I have a document I could submit. The DHCR showed a screenshot of what they have as listed for our unit, for our building in blue. And our building shows 12 units. According to the DHCR, in their building detail dated March 14th, 2013, it states that there are 9 exempt units and 12 total units. According to 2CD, my unit in particular, there is only a year filing date starting back to 1995. So many of these issues, whether the C of O from 1989 was recognized by the DHCR, as you can see from the registry, we don't go any farther back than 1995, same as apartment 3AB, which my co-tenant here today also occupies. There was also mentioned in the most recent submission from the appellant that Roberto Lobato of 5A, that his rent registration has been for his singular unit since 1985, which is also inaccurate. His was only filed from 2002 for 5A going forward. That unit, as well as 5B, which are the 2 DHCR recognized units in the building, that's where you get 12 units as recognized by the DHCR. Essentially, they have it as 1AD, 1B, 1C, 3 units on the first floor, 2 second, 2 third, 2 fourth, 1 in the back on the 5th floor, and then these DHCR recognized tenancies in 5A and 5B, which totals to the 12 units that they show as in our building. So whether these filings were made by the former owner, these rent registrations submitted by the former owner or the current owner is also an issue. As you can see on my registration information, The filing date for 1995's history was 5/12/2003. The current owner had since taken possession of the building, so it's my belief that the current owner is the one who listed my unit as of 1995 as 2CD with a tenant of Dana Hummel. So what my point is, essentially, is that there has been fraud committed on all fronts, in my opinion, by both owners, whether former or current, to deregulate this building. It wasn't the former owner who actually reaped the benefits of this plot to join the units, whether they joined them, whether they just put leases that said they were joined, whichever way you want to look at it. It happened to be the current owner who was able to benefit this, charge market rates for tenants, increase rents whenever needed, deny renewals, etc. So while the appellant may make this case for you, please do recognize that there are unclean hands here on both sides, whether former owner or current owner.
Have you been in touch with DHCR yourself?
I attended the two tenants, the DHCR recognized tenants who received the 7-day notice of termination from the owner December of, I believe, 2013. I attended the meeting with Jennifer Spencer, a staff attorney at the DHCR, along with the two tenants who had complained. And in that meeting, she did mention, I don't have the transcripts per se, but she did mention that the DHCR would defer to the DOB. Ultimately, I don't know the statement of fact or law in this matter, but I do recall her saying that, which also may be a reason why we are here today. I also did want to mention one last thing. Appellant did list a lease for 2CD in a former submission, I believe, from 1990, in which the stated rent for that unit, 2CD, was $1,000. So in 1990, that unit would still be rent stabilized because the rent was only $1,000. Obviously, they want to prove whether that unit had been joined or had not been joined, but as far as that lease indicates, this should still have been a DHCR recognized unit as of 1990 and going forward. And that's all I think I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything else? I can submit that.
Please, yes, definitely.